right, welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you, and let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part, so make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to TheIndianJesus.com for your very own official merch. We got shirts, we got everything. If you're still wearing a mask, you can get an Indian Jesus mask and so much more only at TheIndianJesus.com. Guys, we do also have a Discord server that is absolutely free to join. It is free 24/7. We are in there hanging out. It is a great place to meet people and have interesting conversations, and it's free. However, if you are a member of this channel right here, you can scroll right below the video here, hit that join button. Few different tiers here, but it starts at just $2.99 a month, and it gets you members only live streams here on YouTube. We just did one yesterday, but it opens up the full Discord server, including the after party. So as soon as we are done here, we head over there, and we don't have to worry about any YouTube censors, and you are not stuck behind your keyboard. You're actually on screen with me and everybody else. It's a good time. Definitely come and join us. Shout out to King Nirvana in the building. So are they going to talk about God? You are goddamn right they are. So if you are not familiar, Richard Dawkins is one of the OG new atheist types who has done a pretty good job of not going the way of Sam Harris. And like, you know, in like 10, 15 years ago, Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins were like up here, and then TDS came, and we lost Sam Harris. And you know, I mean, Richard Dawkins is, you know, an old school liberal, so he's still an old school liberal, but he's definitely not down with the woke stuff. And then of course you guys know Jordan Peterson, but they also brought Alex O'Connor, a good friend that I met personally at Dissident Dialogues, to moderate this discussion. So they get into some stuff, and they're talking about, you know, how Richard Dawkins coined the term meme in the 70s, and that versus archetypes and stuff, and not super interesting. But we jump in to where we are talking about how they simply have different perspectives on truth and reality and religion and all of that good stuff. So as always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Well, I would prioritize my perceptions like this. The fact that I care about are the facts that are true and have evidence going for them. And I'm not that interested in symbols. I think, Dr. Peterson, you're drunk on symbols.
Yes, you mentioned, I've heard that comment. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, for example, I counted up in your book, We Who Wrestle with God, a number of references to Cain.
Mm-hmm.
There are 356 references to Cain in the book, and 20 references to the descendants of Cain. You're obsessed with Cain because Cain is symbolic of evil. All the evil in the world, you more or less blame Cain for. And this is Cain. I mean, you don't believe Cain actually existed, I presume.
Well, I think of Cain as, well,
do you believe Cain existed?
Do you believe Cain existed? A very simple question, a very basic question. Do you believe this man called Cain, who was the son of Adam and Eve, did he exist, or is it a story? Very simple.
I think the pattern that Cain represents is an eternal pattern. And so
yes,
it's a
I was born in a middle-class family. All right, Kamala.
higher level of existence.
That's different. I realize
Well, there
that.
are Cain types who exist, and they're
Yeah. There are Cain types.
Yeah.
So Jordan, do you think that Richard Dawkins said, no, there's nobody that's like Cain in the world? Of course not. That's not the question. Shout out to Daniel. Welcome to the party. Said Peterson got totally exposed. He's been grifting for years. And I think grifting is a strong word, but definitely kind of spinning his wheels in ways that it's like, come on, bro. Shout out to Muffin. Welcome to the party. Said because it doesn't matter if Cain existed or not, because what matters is the meaning behind the story. And sure, that may matter, but I definitely care if the claims that are made in the Bible are true.
Yeah.
But Cain himself, I mean, you give the game away where you say in your book, Cain and Abel were the first humans to be born in the natural way. Now that betrays you.
Did I say the word drift? What?
As it were, pretending you think they really existed, because you wouldn't have said they were born in a natural way unless you were
came with the receipt.
Muddling up facts with symbols there, because you don't think that Cain and Abel existed.
Well, I don't. What do I think about Cain and Abel? I said, I think the pattern that they represent always exists.
Sure. And again, I am totally with that. As an atheist, I am totally down to say that there are amazing stories in the Bible that all people should be able to learn from. That's a different question than did it actually happen, or is it just a story?
Always exists.
There's a reason that every other movie now has based on a true story. It sells better, and it makes that it has a stronger claim. You know, that he literally claims God doesn't exist. No spoilers, no spoilers. We will get there for sure, for sure.
You understand that that's a different thing.
What's a different matter? A pattern that they represent, the conflict between brothers, the rivalry between brothers. This is a fundamental pattern, which yes, it's something that's there. But I care about facts. I mean, did they exist or did they not exist?
I said, shit, me too. I care about facts. And maybe you don't, and that's totally fine. I am not trying to take religion away from anybody. But if you want to base my government and my laws on your religion, then it does, in fact, matter whether they existed or not.
Well, I can imagine a situation where when the story was originated, that it referred to two actual brothers. But as the stories propagate across time, as they mutate, as they adapt, let's say, to the structure of human memory, they deepen and they become broader. And so then they become emblematic, not only of the pattern of conflict that might characterize the original two brothers that the story was about, but
so again, you're just saying Cain types exist.
About the conflict between brothers as such, and then the more fundamental levels of conflict that exist within human beings, which is what you see in more sophisticated literature.
Shout out to anybody who is new here. We got my co-host Morty in the building. That didn't do anything, and every donation, no matter the price, goes with a treat for Morty. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I would greatly appreciate if you could hit that like button, and that subscribe really does help. Thank you so very much.
It's like the biblical accounts speak of fact in a factual manner upon occasion, but the biblical accounts also speak poetically and metaphorically and allegorically, and people who are sophisticated in biblical analysis have known this for centuries.
Okay, but what percentage of people who claim to be Christians are sophisticated in biblical analysis? Probably not very many, right?
The biblical literalists generally suffer from the problem that they don't even know what it means to be literalist. There's lots of unsophisticated ways of approaching a text.
Okay, let's see what Professor Dawkins thinks about that.
Well, I suppose I'm a literalist. I mean, and you give the game away when you say Cain and Abel were the first humans to be born in a natural way.
Well, I'm speaking allegorically there within the confines of the text. I mean, what I meant by that was that
that's fair.
The way the story lays itself out is that Adam and Eve are created by God. And so they're not emblematic of the pattern of human beings that exist in fallen history.
That's fair. He's saying, so to say that Cain and Abel were the first born by natural, according to the Bible, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment. Daniel said, calling himself sophisticated. Well, I think he definitely is sophisticated. But just, you know, I think he's not as sophisticated as he thinks in some ways, and he's way more sophisticated in ways that he thinks that other people are. And he's not good at communicating what's in his mind. I think he's very intelligent. I think he's very sophisticated in the way that he thinks about these things. Clearly not a Christian. But people don't know that, because he's not good at communicating. Shout out to Funk Master General in the building, coming in hot with 5 gifted memberships and, of course, a treat for Morty. And guys, again, Amanda, Daniel, Reggie, Gogita, Steven, and Woke Racist really suck. I agree and love the name. You guys are now members of the channel, so make sure you join the Discord server, because you now have access to the full thing, including the after party. Thank you so very much, sir. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you, sir. Dana said, yeah, he's a pretty sophisticated scam. That's fair. Canadian Goose, are we far in enough? Canadian Goose shit said God is just a statistic. Okay. No, what do you mean by that? Interesting. Shout out to Carl. Welcome to the party. So Dave Smith just said he's probably voting for Trump. The Kamala Liz Cheney town hall did the trick. I take back my TDS allegations. I was wrong. And don't we love accountability on this channel? I told you. Actually, I didn't know, but there we go. Welcome to the party. And we also got Mighty Starlock. Welcome. Good to see you guys. Let's dive right back in here.
They're not emblematic of the pattern of human beings that exist in fallen history within the confines of the text. The first two people who are genuine, who aren't creations of the divine, are Cain and Abel. And so for me, they're emblematic of the patterns of conflict that rip people apart in the world of history. The world.
So Cain does exist or he doesn't exist?
Of normal history.
Professor Dawkins, I know you take particular umbrage with that statement that Cain and Abel were the first normally born human beings, but I think if I understand Dr. Peterson correctly, there are things that can be sort of true within a story. It's true that Sherlock Holmes lives at 221B Baker Street, and as far as I understand, that's maybe what you mean by the truth in the matter of Cain and Abel being the first naturally born humans.
And I think that's fair. I think that's a fair misinterpretation by Dawkins, and I think that's a fair explanation by Jordan.
Well, in the context of this story, they're the first two spirits or patterns you could think of, patterns of perception and action, that characterize human existence in the fallen world, right? So they're emblematic of what happens in history outside of the whatever is meant by the pre-existent paradise.
At the same time, you must know, I know this comes up all of the time when somebody says, but did Cain and Abel really exist? And I know that you want to say that the story which
I think it's a silly question. I think it's like asking...
It's not a silly question. It is a truth claim made by one of, if not the biggest religions in the world, in the history of the world. How is it a silly question to ask, did this actually happen? I understand that you may say, okay, that may not be the main point here, but that can't be irrelevant. It can't be irrelevant.
The story which
I think it's a silly question. I think it's like asking whether Raskolnikov existed in Crime and Punishment.
But it's not, because nobody is using Crime and Punishment to try to dictate the laws, are they?
Like, it's not a trivial question, because you can answer yes and you can answer no. You can say, well, there was no such specific person as Raskolnikov, but it's not a helpful question, because
I agree when it comes to whatever the fuck it is, but when it comes to God, it absolutely is a useful question. Daniel said, God is the meta substrate within the relationship between the finite and the element of the infinite.
What?
So again, if you're new here, commonly I will say God is very, 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 very bad at being a word. The purpose of a word is to take the thoughts that are in my head and put them in your head. Now, you have an idea of what God is. So when I say God, the idea that you have of God appears in your head. The idea that I have of God, I don't really have a good idea of what God is because of this very reason, but other people do. And they will say God, meaning their idea, and then it comes in your mind, it gets their idea. And then you add a third person, and now we have three different ideas. And it gets worse from there. I mean, come on. Bunkmaster General said, it's true that Christopher Lee is the real-life James Bond. There you go. Muffin says, because it happens every day, manifested through every generation. What?
The reason that Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment is a masterpiece is because Raskolnikov was everywhere in Russia when Dostoevsky wrote Crime and Punishment. And so Raskolnikov is hyper-real, not real.
But to be clear, is that how you feel about Cain and Abel? That is to say, an identifiable
hyper-real
Homo sapiens called Cain,
it's irrelevant.
who murders his brother.
In a sense, it's irrelevant to me.
Okay, but do you think it? So you just were able to say that Rakishnikov, whatever it is, the Crime and Punishment guy, is hyper-real because it doesn't actually exist in the way that we're asking, but there's another level. So then just use that same thing. But you know that you can't answer the question because you will crumble. Shout out to Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. said people take religion too seriously. That includes atheists, in my opinion. I said, shit, I agree. And so does Dylan Soup. Welcome to the party, guys. Good to see you. We also got the next president of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. Welcome. Said, according to the fake news, I am a fascist community. Of course you are. Of course, as Chunk Yogurt would say. Muffin said, okay, let me ask you this. How are you so certain they didn't exist? I am absolutely not. I agree that nobody can answer that question, but I'm not claiming that I know that they didn't exist. I'm just asking the question, as are these two. And Peterson is claiming he will say yes without going into this explanation. Well, there's the hyperreal and the fictionalism. He will just say yes to anybody else. It's only once you dig into what he's saying that he actually will reveal that, well, I mean, and he walks it back because it's bullshit.
Homo sapiens called Cain.
It's irrelevant.
Who murders his brother.
In a sense, it's irrelevant to me because
it's not irrelevant to me.
Even if they were real, like we don't.
If they were real, that sounds like another admission that Cain and Abel did not exist. Dylan said, I don't care about God. I'm just so amazed so few people are seeing Peterson's total scam. I think it's because it's newer. It's of the Daily Wire time. Before that, he was much more focused on the stories of the Bible. And again, I agree that there is a lot of meat there. But once he tried to bring it into the political realm, it doesn't fit that way. So, I mean, the fact of the matter is then that the one not making the claim doesn't have the burden of proof. And so, but he is. Peterson is saying that Christianity is true. Have you listened to his conversations with Sam Harris? He absolutely believes that just because it's not real in the sense that you can touch it, that it doesn't mean that it's not true. When we're asking specifically, if you look at if we are specifically talking about, can I touch it? Does it exist? Did it happen? Historical? All those ways, he will say no. He will say no.
It's irrelevant.
Rather, excuse me, he will say yes, but he will mean all of this other stuff
to me because even if they were real, like we don't know anything about them as historical figures.
Even if they weren't real, of course they weren't real.
Well, like I said, it could have been the case that when the story originated, way back when it originated, that the first people that were described by the first person who generated the seeds of the Cain and Abel story were referring to actual people. But it doesn't matter because the text is being compressed and modified.
It doesn't matter to you. It doesn't matter to you. And that's fine. It doesn't need to matter to you. But there are two people in front of you who are saying, hey, it matters to me. And you claim to be the expert and so sophisticated on this. So please just answer the question. Context said the Avengers don't exist. Should we disregard the lessons and morals that they taught us as not real? Of course not. But if we start saying that, well, only those who, have held an infinity stone can hold office, well, then we're going to have an issue with the morals and lessons that are taught in the Avengers. That is the difference. Not whether or not it's true, whether or not it's being used to control people's lives. Show me where people are using the Avengers to try and dictate through legislation how people live. Can't do it.
Right, over a vast span of time. And it's accreted all sorts of meanings that certainly weren't part and parcel of whatever the original story was.
Let's take the point Alex was making. Within the confines of the story.
That's fine, Muffin. That's fine that he's saying that. But he was asked a direct question. He was asked a direct question, and he's not answering it. Just answer it. So just say, no, they're not real in the way that you're asking, but they're real enough in the way that their story matters. Just say that. Just say that.
It's a point Alex was making. Within the confines of the story, Dostoevsky was a great writer. What makes you think the writers of Genesis were a great writer? I mean, who were they? We know nothing about them.
Well, I think they were great writers because I think I understand the patterning of the stories and what it points to. I think the idea, for example, that Cain and Abel are emblematic of two opposed patterns of adaptation to the world is brilliant. It's almost brilliant beyond imagining, especially because the story is so insanely compressed. And it's certainly evident to me as a clinician that the patterns that are portrayed in the story of Cain and Abel play themselves out in the real world.
And again, do you think that the gentleman in front of you, like maybe other people, but other atheists, but do you think that the gentleman in front of you disagree with the notion that the archetype of Cain and Abel play themselves out in the real world? Of course not. Of course not. Guys, if I could just get 2 more likes, that would be amazing. Thank you so much.
Continually and terribly.
You think the author of that story in Genesis was a literary genius?
What? I think that there's a spirit of literary genius at work across millennia.
All right, I let it pass the first time, but projection. Love a good projection.
Crafting that story so that it has almost an infinite depth. How that relates to the original author or sequential authors, I don't know, because it's lost in the seeds of time. It's lost in history.
So the story.
Exactly, Daniel. Spot on. He's saying so vague and ambiguous things that you can interpret it however you want. It's basically a horoscope blended with some obviousness. Shout out to that. Let's give that a dilly. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Or it evolved, you're saying the story.
Like a meme.
Yes, well,
evolved.
that's interesting.
It evolved to match the contours of the human memory. That's exactly it, is that these stories.
Canadian, you doing okay?
That's part of their archetypal nature. Like, so they have a emotional and motivational expression, but as they
I'm too stupid to understand the word that coming out of my mouth. That's why I can exactly repeat the thing that he said because I don't know it.
Propagated across time, they also evolve, so they're maximally memorable. And they're maximally memorable for a biological reason.
Well, that's very interesting. If they really did evolve over time, if you could actually trace successive manuscripts, you can't do that. I mean, there's
like history.
Presumably a couple of Hebrew manuscripts and a Greek one. And I mean, what do you mean when you say it evolved?
Well, I would say you can see that in the compilation of the biblical texts, because one of the things that you see evolve, and you criticized the biblical text at one point. Correct me if I've got this wrong, because I don't want to get this wrong. You said that there isn't anything in the biblical text that constitutes, let's say, significant original discovery, which is something that you'd expect if it was of divine providence, let's say.
Shout out again. Sorry, I forgot to update the banner to our sponsor, Funk Master General. Thank you, sir.
Divine providence. And so, I think, I was thinking about that objection, and I think that one of the discoveries that the text lays bare in an insanely brilliant manner is that the foundation of the...
That's a good point. They were writing at a time when most people couldn't. That would make them a literary genius by default. I'll take that. That's definitely fair. Daniel said, no one thinks it's strange that every person Peterson is talking to is the only one doing the abstract ramblings. Every person ever. Yeah, I mean, it took a while for me to see it. But again, I think it really got bad when he tried to, like, when he was just doing his YouTube lectures and stuff. There wasn't there wasn't such the impact on other people's lives. It was just about, hey, this is what I think about this stuff. And that's totally cool. Just, hey, if you think this way about this stuff, fine. But then when you become a political authority with the Daily Wire stamp, and you're saying, this is true, this is it. And then when we dig in and you don't actually think that's true, yikes. Shout out to YouTube Junkie. Welcome to the party. Said plenty of texts teach moral lessons. The Bible is supposedly describing original sin and providing a foundation for salvation by Jesus. So it matters if it's true. Bingo. Well said. Welcome. No.
The community is sacrifice, that's an appropriate conceptualization. And you can see the concept of sacrifice evolve across the biblical texts as they're sequenced chronologically in the overall story that makes up the biblical text. Okay, so Muffin, you reiterate what that was and make it make sense. Because since I'm so stupid, you just condense what he said into normal people, dumb people speak, and prove me wrong. The idea of sacrifice becomes more and more sophisticated. It's more and more elaborated. It's more and more specified. It's more and more embodied. There's an obvious progression in ideas. Right. And Mighty Stolac said, agreed. It matters if it's true. The problem is we don't know it's true. Exactly. And so if we don't know something is true, we should not take it as true.
we should remain skeptical and say, I don't know. I don't know. Let's keep trying to learn. Let's keep using the process of science that has taught us everything about everything that we know. And if there is a God, eventually we will either find a way that, there's somewhere that our science is not working. We could reasonably assume that there's some type of thing that maybe we would call a God. Certainly not Yahweh, but let's not even go down that road. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't know it's true, then we shouldn't be following it. In politics, if you want to practice this in your home, in your life, do whatever. It's the fact that this is a political channel. This is a political channel. He's spreading political ideas. That is the issue here.
Specified, is more and more embodied. There's an obvious progression in ideas.
The progression, where do you see that progression? In successive manuscripts, or
in the successive stories as the text progresses, the way a novel progresses.
So something like sacrifice in the Old Testament, sacrifice in the Old Testament.
No, for the entire
all the way through to
the New Testament text is a sacrificial story as well. The Passion story is a story of sacrifice.
It is
and
indeed.
the sacrificial motif recurs continually through the biblical text, and it's elaborated constantly. And
okay, so the criticism is the Bible as a text gives us nothing to indicate that it has divine origin. There's nothing that we can read in it where we think there's no way this idea could have evolved were it not divinely put into this text. That's a criticism that perhaps Professor Dawkins made in the past.
Well, I think it's reflective of some order that's so profound and implicit that there isn't a better way of describing it than divine. But I don't really care if we look at that from the bottom up, like as a biological phenomena, or as from the top down. I don't think it makes any difference.
Shout out to Bill Bradley. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya. Said, people's personal morality is their politics. They're inextricably intertwined. Everyone votes their morality. Everyone votes based on what they think is right and wrong, no matter why they believe it. Bingo. So we should figure out why people believe what they believe. And if they believe things that are not true, then we should be in the business of having people believe as many true things as possible and as few not true things as possible. Welcome to the party. Oh yeah, I'll say it, baby.
It doesn't make a difference whether it was divinely inspired or whether it evolved within human.
I don't think. Look,
do the Christians here? Do you agree with Jordan Peterson that it doesn't matter if the Bible was divinely inspired? It doesn't matter. Maybe there was no God. It doesn't matter. Do you agree with that?
Okay, so let me ask you this. Like, I think that at bottom, truth is unified. And what that's going to mean eventually is that the world of value.
Oh, you're heading out. Good. Glad you came by. Definitely hit that subscribe. I would love to see you again, brother. You have a good one.
In the world of fact coincide in some manner that we don't yet understand. And I think that union, the fact of that union and the fact of that union.
The what? The fact of the union and the what?
The fact of that union and the fact of that union is equivalent to what's being described as divine order across millennia. There's no difference. Now,
he's getting mad.
And this is a tricky business, because you either believe that the world of truth is unified in the final analysis, or you don't. Those are the options. And if it's not unified, then there's a disunity. There's a contradiction between value and fact, or there's a contradiction between different sets of values, and they can't be brought into a unity. I don't believe that.
Well,
okay, and so Cain does or no? I'm just kidding. Shout out to Osrian. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Welcome. Said, what political ideas are some people not allowed to have? Do you have a specific example? Absolutely fucking not. You are allowed to have whatever political ideas you want. I just am personally going to have my issues with the ones that I think are bad. Like, God said this, therefore that should be the law. That is a specific example of any type of law that should not exist. But welcome to the party. Funkmaster said, maybe God's not dead, just frustrated and bored with our nonsense. It very well could be. Very, very well could be.
Contradiction between different sets of values, and they can't be brought into a unity. I don't believe that.
Well, let's go back to what you said earlier, which I was very interested in. You implied there's no difference between whether the text is divinely inspired or whether it evolved in progression during a series of manuscripts, presumably. Now, I think that's genuinely interesting, but it's a huge difference. It's not the same thing. I mean, either it was divinely inspired or it wasn't.
Well, it's the same thing if it's fundamentally reflective of the inaccurately reflective of the implicit logos or order? And I think it is. Like, let me explain that a moment. Like, it took me a long time to understand the concept of sacrifice in the biblical text because it seems so anachronistic and so primitive, and primitive and not understandable. What are these people doing, offering, choice cuts of meat to a God that lives in the sky?
Something just disgusting about it.
Well, it's very easy to satirize, but when you start to understand that perception itself is sacrificial in its nature. What?
Perception itself is sacrificial in nature, meaning that once you choose a perspective, then all other possible is that the level that we're going to? Perception itself is sacrificial?
And you start to understand that there's no difference.
Oh, we're just going to throw that out there. Okay. Does anybody have any idea what he means by that?
In itself is sacrificial in its nature, and you start to understand that there's no difference between work and sacrifice, that they're the same thing, and you understand that community is predicated on sacrifice, then the emphasis in the text on sacrifice starts to become something quite marked and remarkable, especially because it's implicit. It isn't obvious at all that the authors of the texts and the editors who sequenced them actually understood what it was that they were highlighting.
Exactly. And what you guys are saying, like, this stuff exists. We don't need it to be in the context of the Christian Bible in order for these ideas to work. They've existed long before the Bible did, and they will exist if all knowledge of the Bible is Thanos snapped from the earth. People will come back to these ideas, good versus evil. That will always happen. I don't understand his need to force it into this structure that doesn't seem to work. And he has to do all these mental gymnastics that nobody understands, I guess, except him and Muffin. Context. In order to focus on anything, you have to deny or sacrifice a lot of other things. But is that really the same thing as child sacrifice or even sacrificing a lamb? Like, come on. That is such a non sequitur. The type of sacrifice that we're talking about there. And this is obfuscating what we're talking about. We're talking about the fact that human beings felt that giving meat to a sky daddy is a weird thing. And Jordan Peterson saying, yeah, I agree. But even though that's really weird, well, if you focus on something, then you can't focus on other things.
What?
Okay. And no explanation further than that.
And the editors who sequenced them actually understood what it was that they were highlighting. So with regards to the community, why is the community predicated on...
So Bill says, but who cares if it's in the context of the Christian Bible? I do. The people who don't believe in Christianity. The people who don't believe in Christianity, who maybe are not smart enough to realize that actually, even though Christianity isn't true, there's a lot of really good values in there that I should follow. And instead, they leave behind all of the values and go and make the government their new religion. You do not care about that? Would it be better, as I often ask, would it not be a better country if all of the atheist heathens still had Christian values? Would we be talking about abortion as the main issue? Of course not. Of course not. Shout out to Steven. Bravo. Thank you for the gifted membership. Of course, every donation comes with a treat for Morty. Shout out to Greg. Make sure you join the Discord. You now have full access. But guys, of course, it is free. It is free. Make sure that you join. Shout out to Unworthy. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm trying to simplify. They're not talking about the context. I'm just, in the grand, what they are specifically talking about is the idea of the Sky Daddy thing. That is what they are discussing. So, like, if we go back,
the emphasis in the text on sacrifice starts to become something quite marked and remarkable, especially because it's implicit. It isn't obvious at all that the authors of the texts and the editors who sequenced them actually understood what it was that they were highlighting. So with regards to the community, why is the community predicated on sacrifice? Because it's not about you, the community. Every step you take towards the...
Okay, then who's it about? God? Okay, does God exist? Well, it depends on what... God is hyper real. This is circular. This is circular.
Communitarian means that you sacrifice something.
One day, a brave soul said, hey, why are we wasting this delicious goat meat? Facts. Shout out to Ashutosh. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Welcome to the party. Say, what if I say I'm from a different religion, yet my religion allows me to believe in Jesus? Awesome. I am, to each their own in terms of your beliefs. I have no desire to take religious beliefs away from anybody. I have a desire to have people stop pushing their religious beliefs, whether that is Christianity or governmental trans bullshit, on other people. Dogma in any form is bad. Dogma is bad in every form. I was right and said, if any political idea is allowed, then what is the difference between someone pulling their ideas from X versus pulling beliefs from themselves? Nothing. It's the justification as to why they have that belief. So if you have a political idea and it's a bad idea, then we can argue about whether or not that's a good idea. But if you have a political idea and it's a bad idea, but you believe it came from God, there's nothing I can say. God said it, so therefore I win. That is not a good way for a society to run. At all. Just my opinion.
Every step you take towards the communitarian means that you sacrifice something that's local to what you want here and now.
Or did he have nothing to do with it because he doesn't exist?
Right now.
I think
you have to give something up.
You're wandering onto something else now, which is something quite different. The notion of sacrifice, as you say, it goes right through the Old Testament and the New Testament. The sacrifice of Isaac or Ishmael by Abraham and the sacrifice of Jesus.
So you'll notice that first we had the question, does Cain exist? And we kind of got a half answer. Well, if he did exist, then he was. So he kind of answered that, but he danced around it for a while. Then we asked, how is the Bible progressive? And he went all around that. He's just not answering the questions. If all of this stuff is so true and he understands it so well, he should be able to distill it down very well. What do they say? That if you can teach someone else something, then it shows that you understand it. But he is very, very bad at communicating the ideas that are in his head. And again, I do think they are rather sophisticated. They are probably very intelligent, and they probably can help a lot of people. But if you can't articulate them to people, then it doesn't fucking matter. Exactly.
It's the same idea. I think it's a very unpleasant idea, by the way. But what are you actually saying? Are you saying that Abraham did or did not sacrifice Isaac? Are you saying that Jesus really did die for our sins? I mean, do you believe that? Do you believe that as a fact, that Jesus died for our sins?
Well, I don't know. Maybe, it depends on what you mean by belief. It depends on what you believe by Jesus. It depends on what you mean by this. You know exactly what the fuck we mean. Exactly what the fuck we mean. In the most basic question. Did this thing occur in our shared reality? Yes or no? In your personal, what you personally believe?
There are elements of the text that I don't claim to understand. What my experience has been that the more deeply I look into these texts, the more I learn. That doesn't mean that I can proclaim full knowledge of what the texts proclaim.
Okay, and so if we just went on the street and we polled 100 people who knew who Jordan Peterson was, and we asked them, is Jordan Peterson at least quasi leader of Christianity and politics? What percentage do you think would say yes? Definitely over 50.
But I don't think...
And the other ones would be more Christian than him, and.
And I'm not trying to play a trick here. I watched an interview that you did recently where you were talking, I think it was with Piers Morgan, about the complexities of trying to understand this strange realm of quantum phenomena, right? And we have a trouble with quantum phenomena because at the micro level...
Oh, honey, sweetie baby, you're not going to be like, well, we don't quite understand quantum mechanics and we don't understand the Bible, so they're the same.
Level. Things don't act like things act at the macro level. So they escape our intuitions. And one of the things you said was that although it's perhaps even impossible for creatures embodied like us to get a grip on quantum phenomena, the strange wave-particle duality, for example, we have ample evidence that it works, and stellarly. And
Hopefully not me.
You say exactly the same thing about the biblical texts.
Oh.
If they run into a mystery, like there's a horizon of mystery,
What happened to our
which I do not claim to penetrate, but insofar as I've been able to understand the text, every time I make a improvement in understanding, it reveals something to me that's just like shattering.
Quantum physics is deeply mysterious, and you're saying that biblical texts are deeply mysterious. The difference is
one has evidence. One can be recreated.
quantum physics, the predictions you derive from quantum physics are fulfilled to the umpteenth decimal place. The umpteenth decimal place, I mean, I think it was Richard Feynman says, equivalent to predicting the width of North America to the nearest hair's breadth. Now, that's impressive. That's
no doubt.
The mystery there, as it were, gains its credentials by its predictions. The mysteries of the Bible don't have any credentials at all, as far as I can make out.
I'm going to call you Ash so I don't mess up your name. Ash said, do you think Jordan gets too attached with these topics, almost as if he has a divine responsibility to convince everybody? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I spot on. I absolutely think he is too attached to these topics because he's built himself up on these things. And I don't think it's grifting as much as it is being lost in the sauce. I think he's so into this, and what all of the stuff that he's saying makes perfect sense to him and should, in his mind, make perfect sense to everybody else. And it's wild. What do you mean that you're asking if these things really happened? He's just out there. He's just out there. Gontek said, there you go. He admits that he doesn't completely understand. So why do the atheists keep obsessively asking a psychologist about the existence of God? It's not like Peterson is telling anybody that they have to believe in God. At most, he's saying that people could massively benefit from the belief, but I highly doubt that he would force anyone on it. Okay, we can agree that there's a difference between forcing something on somebody and then, representing something in a meaningful way, right? I definitely agree how I definitely agree that Jordan Peterson is not, at the end of the day, counting how many people did I convert to Christianity. As we will see, he is not a real Christian. He does not believe in Christianity. He likes the stories the same way we like Avengers. The questions come from him obfuscating the reality of his own beliefs and saying things that don't match with his ideas. That is why we keep coming back to it. That is why, if he was just honest about what he just said without 28 minutes of digging, then we wouldn't give a shit. We would just say, yeah, you're just some Christian psychologist. But that's not how he postures himself. That's not how he postures himself. Bill says, as an atheist, the best argument I have for intelligent design is the ability of physics to predict the material future through mathematical equation. It exists whether we understand it or not, meaning it is discovered and not invented. It is essentially a language for understanding reality, and language just doesn't exist. It is created. Maybe, sure, okay. We'll come back to this. Shout out to Kyle C. Welcome to the party. Irony. Funny how this dude's trying so hard to be relevant to Jordan Peterson. I don't know, man. It's but then why does he this isn't Richard Dawkins' podcast. This is Jordan Peterson's podcast. Jordan Peterson said, hey guys, why don't you two atheists come here and have a discussion? So what are you talking about? He wanted this. He invited this. He posted this. I don't know what else you want from me. I don't know also what you want from him. I don't know also what you want from Dawkins and Connor. They are here. They were invited to have a conversation. They are having that conversation. Bill says, I can't get over the hurdle of faith, but that argument is at least based in logic and not trust me, bro. Well, yeah, definitely. There seems to be something outside of the material world as we understand it. That's where that ends, though. This can be explained, this stuff can be explained by there being something. But saying it's definitely Christianity, it's definitely Yahweh, that is silly. That is silly. Absolutely silly. Yeah. Idiot. Bitch. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you, brother. But yeah, this is Jordan Peterson.
credentials by its predictions. The mysteries of the Bible don't have any credentials at all, as far as I can make out.
Well, I guess the credentials that I would put
So we hit the like button, because we always hit the like button on videos that we watch, right?
Made a statement a couple of months ago that I found very interesting. And I don't claim to understand it, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot with it. You said that you were a cultural Christian. Okay, and so that raised a number of questions in my mind. And the first question was,
you are changing the subject.
No, I'm
Yet again.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I may be leaping outside of the topic a bit to get back to it.
So how about you don't? How about you don't leap outside the topic? How about you stay inside the topic, and then we could talk about being a cultural Christian, whatever the fuck that means, when we get there.
Cultural Christianity, but I think I have a list of questions that you wanted to ask, and that is one of them. But I think Professor Dawkins did ask you...
You were referring to the predictive power and to the utility of the story.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's actually what I was trying to zero in on.
Go ahead.
Okay, so that was the point. Well, it seemed to me that your proclamation that you were a cultural Christian was a recognition and a statement that you had found something in the culture that had been derived from Christianity that you had an affinity with, and that there's some reason for that. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is, well, what do you think that Christianity got right?
Love, compassion, grace, forgiveness, etc.
That allows you to make a statement like that. I mean, I know that there's differences perhaps in what we both think about the ultimate veracity of the biblical stories. Maybe there isn't differences. Like, it would take a lot of conversation to figure this out. But what did you mean by that? Like, what do you think that Christianity got right that would enable you to make a statement like that?
Shout out to Aim. Welcome to the party. Said Christianity is not the equivalent of God, so which one are you against? Just Christianity or God as a whole? Hard to tell. I am against dogma. I'm against people pushing dogma, acting as if they know what they don't know. So if you are pushing Christianity in a certain sense, then and you don't have the justification to push it, then I have the issue with Christianity. If you're saying that God exists, it may not be Christian, but I know that God exists, well, then I'm going to address that. I agree. They are not the equivalent, but they are both related, and they are both questions that can be discussed in the same conversation.
Actually, nothing.
Well, I don't have a problem with people being Christians. I don't have a problem with people believing in God. I have a problem with people treating me differently for not being Christian or not believing in God and expecting me to do so without the evidence.
I meant by that no more than that I'm brought up in a Christian culture. I went to Christian schools. I therefore know my way around the Bible. I know my way around the Book of Common Prayer.
That's it.
I know the hymns.
That's it.
all. I don't value Christianity as a truth system at all.
I said shit. Me neither. Value system, sure. Value system, absolutely. But as a truth system, not quite. Not quite. And spot on, Bill.
Okay, so let me ask you about that, because maybe that's true and perhaps it's not. So the first question is, like, do you think that there are any marked differences between cultural traditions that would enable you to rank order them in terms of their ethical validity?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for example, we could contrast.
I think everyone here, atheist or otherwise, unless you are a Muslim, I think we could all agree that Christianity is better than Islam. That doesn't mean Christians are better than Muslims. Let's be clear. The ideology of Christianity is better than the ideology of Islam, even though they're both bad and wrong.
Mainstream UK Christianity with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
A hierarchy that points to what?
Well, in the case of Islam, I dislike any religion which punishes apostasy with death, that throws gay people off high buildings, that practices clitoridectomy. That seems to me to place Islam on a lower level than Christianity, but that's not to say.
Yeah, that's not to say that Christianity is, hey, you're not cutting off clitorises. Yay! Oh my God, that's amazing.
Anything very positive about Christianity.
Well, it might be to say something positive about Christianity. Like
Bro, if you think not cutting off little girls' clits is a feather in your cap, then I don't think we can be friends.
I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something that you regard as more ethically appropriate? Like, this isn't a trivial question.
It's a very modest claim. There's not very much. I mean, to be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because if you look at the barbarism that characterizes the human past, you might think that any progression whatsoever towards something approximating mercy and tolerance is nothing short of a bloody miracle.
Well,
Hey, let's remember, we attack ideas in the chat, not people. Ideas, not
people. Are pretty ruthless, and so are our chimpanzee cousins.
yes, they are.
Right. So
Yes.
so we move forward into the light
No, I would like to know as well. I think Bill is pretty spot on here.
with great difficulty.
Yes,
And
yes.
the fact that we can take that for granted now, and that it seems self-evident and deserving of faint praise, it's not so clear to me that that's a reasonable proposition.
Okay, let's grant.
If you want to attack the idea, attack the idea. Saying someone sounds full of shit is not attacking their idea. That is attacking them. This is not Discord. This is YouTube.
So the faint praise, but that has nothing to do with the truth value. And what I care about is the truth value. I see no truth value in the claims of Christianity, the virgin birth, the resurrection, the miracles. Do you believe in any of those?
Nope. Well, to me, it depends on what you mean by believe.
You believe Jesus was born a virgin?
As I said before, there are elements of the text that I don't feel qualified to comment on.
The whole religion is based on this one thing. The resurrection of a dude who was sent to earth. There's certain elements of the text that you don't feel qualified to comment on. Then what are we doing here? I agree with Guamtech then. We should be, this conversation should be with somebody who is more sophisticated than you, sir.
I said before, there are elements of the text that I don't feel qualified to comment on. My experience has been that the more, I know from a metaphorical perspective and from a mythic perspective what the story of the virgin birth means. And
I think a lot of us do that. The special, we could talk about especially the special aspect of Jesus, of God, and there's lots of symbolism there. But did it happen? That is the question. Please do not be weird. Please, come on, guys. Jesus fucking Christ. You are.
And I accept that. I know, for example, that any culture that doesn't hold the image of the woman and infant sacred dies.
Do you mean
and I don't know how that needs to be expressed in a
is
form.
it true, though?
Do you mean that you don't know?
Well, let me ask you about that, because
Caught him.
in a
Is
form
it true, though?
Do you mean that you don't know?
well,
He does mean that he doesn't know.
let me ask you about that, because truth, this is something I talked with Sam Harris about too.
For 7 hours. 7 hours. He had well, maybe I might be exaggerating that. I think it was 4 hours, maybe 4.5 hours. 2 different podcasts. What is truth?
Truth, as we know, is a tricky business. Do you think there are differences in the truth claims between different writers of fiction?
Fiction would be like not truth claims. Like the Bible.
Like, is Dostoevsky more profound than?
Well,
But that has nothing to do with truth claims and truth values.
I wouldn't call fiction truth claims anyway. I mean, these are.
Then on what grounds do we rank order the fiction in terms of quality?
Mainly personal, preference, but also the objective things that we've looked outside that do exist in the book, and how well that relates to the truth, the reality that we live in.
Like, Dostoevsky is a profound purveyor of fiction on the philosophical front, unbelievably deep and profound.
Yes,
There's something true about what he's writing about.
Listen, what did you just say that, bro? Why is it so important that JBP, the person who is on the Daily Wire speaking his beliefs to other people and influencing what they think and how they vote, why is that important, what he believes? Why is it important that he admits what he believes? He's explained so many times that he believes in the morals of the story, not whether they actually happen. Then why is this huge then? Why is this huge that he's finally, it took Richard Dawkins for him to admit these things? Maybe somewhere in the annals of the catalog, not all of us are as big of fans of Peterson as you are. And I'm not, I am a fan of him. I do think he is an intelligent person. But when it comes to the religion, I don't think that he does the job. I don't think, as Dawkins says, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. And he is the one He is the one that is trying to, bring two, not just one, but two atheists into a studio and claim that he knows things. I don't know what, I don't know what he expected. Bill said, I think Peterson has crumbled mentally under the scrutiny and hate he has gotten over the last several years. I just think it's a mentally broken human at this point. Sadly, I think you might be a little bit more correct than we would like, because I mean, he definitely went through it, and between his illnesses and drug addiction and all that stuff. I mean, I don't read this as Bill throwing shade, and I agree in a non-shade throwing way.
It's nothing to do with the truth. The truth that science is concerned with. The truth of science is the truth that gets us to the moon. I mean, this is nothing to do with.
Well, I mean, another story for another day.
Whether one writer of fiction has a sort of insight into human nature, that goes without saying. I accept that.
Okay, so how do we deal with the notion that on the purely factual side, how do we deal with the idea? Let's take you talked about clitoridectomy. Let's talk about the oppression of women.
Yes.
We make a scientific case that that's inappropriate, or is it a case that we're making on some other grounds? Like I see in the Judeo-Christian tradition, one of the earliest pronouncements is that both men and women carry the image of God, both. And that sets a certain tone to everything that follows. And it is a remarkable proclamation given its radical age.
Ryan asked about which laws. I think that I think Roe v. Wade was the best that we were as somebody who believes that life begins at conception. I think Roe v. Wade was the best situation we were going to have to save as many children as we can and as many children as early as we can. Getting rid of Roe v. Wade only ensured that there are going to be states where 9-month abortions are legal, where they never were. So that would not have been such a strong issue if people weren't so dogmatic about this is what it is. It has to be this way, or it has to be this way. It's dogma. Again, it's not just Christianity. It just happens to be Christianity in certain ways. And again, I definitely hate the dogma from the other side. We can talk about the transes all day long. That is all based on dogma as well. Quantex said the reason JBP is respected is because he is good at breaking down the stories, not because he's trying to prove the existence of God. Maybe he used to be, but not anymore. He's just not anymore. I mean, unless I am dumb, when he speaks, it's almost as bad as Kamala Harris. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but it's so much. It's just the same thing with Russell Brand. Like, again, I don't think that these are dumb people. I don't think that these are moronic people, but they are not good at concisely communicating what they want to say. And if you're going to be in politics and news and not in art and in liberal arts, at least, then you need to be more direct. And this is not direct. And it turns people off and people don't understand. And then someone like you who's willing to sit and listen to all the flowery language and actually, picks it apart, then is going to get mad at somebody who's like, I don't know what you're talking about. It's not my fault. It's not my fault that he has ideas that he can't communicate properly to me. Unless I'm stupid. Bill Bradley said Roe v. Wade 24-week standard was late term by the standard of almost every other Western nation except Canada, to be fair. 15 weeks is the Western standard. But in the U.S., when the GOP talked about 15 weeks, 15 weeks, people started calling it a ban. The standard for the rest of the world is presented as a ban in the U.S. Things are wild here. Yeah, and so you have two opposing dogmas that a baby is not a baby until it's out of the womb, or a baby is a baby as soon as it's a baby. And when you have two things that are zero sum, nobody can win that game, and there is no middle ground. We had a middle ground. Do you care about being right, or do you care about the lives of those children? Shout out to Brandon Murphy. Welcome to the party. Says, a Christian myself, I'd rather love people for who they are rather than judge people of what religion and various backgrounds people are from. If they think Christians are hateful, what makes the left? The same. Again, this is not a one-sided issue. This is a dogmatic, bipartisan issue. It just manifests differently on the different sides. King Nirvana said it's not really a problem as much when the other guy asks him what he believes. Jordan doesn't answer directly. Am I close to having it right? I mean, yeah, that's it. Like, I just like give clear answers. If you believe this stuff and you have it so worked out, then it's not like a flex to articulate it in such a way that you have to already understand it to understand it. That's not a flex. You should be able to explain it to a 5-year-old. Okay, let's say that this entire concept is just a little bit too, but you should be able to explain it to a 15-year-old. And do not tell me that the average 15-year-old, especially today, can keep up with whatever the hell he's saying, which is not much of anything.
And it is a remarkable proclamation given its radical age, that both men and women carry the image of God and are to be treated as something with intrinsic value outside of the domain of power and politics. And it isn't obvious to me, having thought about this a lot, how we deal with that in the pure realm of fact. Because one of the facts is, if I can oppress you, why the hell shouldn't I?
Yeah, my job is
because it's not nice. Like, literally, it's just that deep. It's literally that shallow. Don't be mean because you don't want people to be mean to you. You know, the whole golden rule thing.
keep things on track here. I think there are a number of questions which Professor Dawkins has asked quite directly that we still haven't really heard an answer for.
Okay.
All right, but like, if he knew that this was the case, that, like, that's not on them, dude. That's on him. That's on him. He's not answering the questions. He's dancing around. And he's saying he doesn't know, so they're trying to move on, and then he doesn't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You're really blindsided here, man. I know that you're a fan of Peterson. I am too, but you got to look at it for what it is. He is not doing well here. He is not explaining his ideas properly to the people that are in the room or to me. And so, again, maybe me, Alex O'Connor, and Richard Dawkins together are all retarded. Maybe you are smarter than the three of us put together. Maybe. I'm absolutely willing to say that. But this is not good for Jordan Peterson. Bill said, Peterson is generally good when it comes to his field, clinical psychiatry. Outside of that, it gets iffy fast. Yep. Shout out to Smugdug. Welcome. So the problem is that Peterson understands and accepts Dawkins' worldview, but Dawkins is being obtuse and acted like philosophy has no value in regard to truth, which is infantile. I disagree. I at no point has he ever said that. It's just that is not the question that was asked. I've seen many discussions and debates and stuff and podcasts with Richard Dawkins, and he absolutely will dive into this stuff. But that's not what they're talking about.
Professor Dawkins asking about the
yo, that's my boy. Leave Alex alone.
Virgin birth. You started talking about metaphor, you started talking about myth. I think anybody listening to this conversation will understand that maybe a society that doesn't believe in the virgin birth won't work. Maybe that's the predictive power that you're talking about. But I think you must understand that when Professor Dawkins is asking you, do you believe that Jesus was born of a virgin? He means something like a biological fact. And by the way, saying I don't know, or saying, I'm not qualified to comment, is an answer to that question. But is that your answer, that you don't know?
So, and according to you, Guamtech, that at this point, Jordan should be, well, of course, I've said that 3 times already. That should be his justified response. Not that he would say that, but he could say that. Shout out to Stupid Symbol. Welcome. So why do you talk like you're perpetually flabbergasted? Because I am. Somehow, I think that maybe, just maybe, somebody will pull it together, and yet everybody drops the fucking ball at every goddamn turn. Always. But welcome to the party.
I said earlier, and I would hold to this, is that there are elements of the text that I don't know that I'm incapable of fully accounting for. I can't.
And again, for me, Guamtech, that's perfectly fine. Like, I'm okay with that. But then, okay, then all that you have to say about Christianity is completely irrelevant to me. Because you are, you're not some authority. You're just some guy who believes some stuff. And cool, great for you. But that's not how he postures himself.
And account for what the fundamental reality and significance of the notion of the resurrection is. My knowledge,
in relation to the truth of the claims in the Bible,
just ends
Sure, but
I know that whatever happened as a consequence of the origination and the promotion of the Christian story was powerful enough to bring Rome to its knees and demolish the pagan enterprise.
So, as Ryan said, what makes an idea of early or late being dogmatic wrong? Is there no space for dogma at all? Nope. Just because something is considered dogma doesn't make it false. Well, dogma is So it's not about the fact that something is dogma. It's the fact that you believe it not you, but the general you believe it dogmatically. So the fact that people believe that a man can transform into a female and are not willing to let go of that belief. That is the problem. It's not a problem if you think that, because I can very easily show you that that's not the case unless you're not willing to look at reason and evidence. In the same way, if you have whatever issues or whatever beliefs about God and the universe and this and that, and you're willing to question them, then it's not dogmatic. But you have to be, my motto is believe nothing except that anything is possible. That is how you avoid dogma. Dogma is bad because you should always be willing to question your beliefs. Can you give me a situation where you think that believing something and not being willing to question it is better than believing it but also being willing to question it? What would be a situation there? Well, it says dogmatic belief makes people believe their positions inarguable so there can never be compromise, which in general, large-scale societies need to function. Exactly.
So there's some power in that story that's remarkable.
Let's stick to the virgin birth.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, well,
where's the fallacy? You are absolutely right. Dogma equals wrong. Where's the fallacy?
the virgin birth results from a mistranslation of Isaiah. You know that.
Like these sorts of questions.
Sure, exactly. You would be correct, but you should still be willing to question your beliefs at any point. That doesn't mean you should give that belief up. Is that just because you believe a thing that is correct doesn't mean it's okay to not be willing to give it up, because we could have new information. There could be some evolution in humanity where we have, something that doesn't have whatever. I don't fucking know what's going to happen in the future. I don't have a fucking crystal ball. But as of right now, we know that a man can't become a woman. And so we can just believe that. But until and unless there is evidence to come and change that, then we continue to believe that. But we are always open to that being changed.
It's, what would you say? They don't strike me as, they're not getting to the point.
I know
The
that.
story
I know
has
the
a
thing.
purpose.
Yes.
Well, and look, I understand that there's perfect reasons to debate this. I know that, and I know that your question is more than valid, but it's beside the issue as far.
Okay, so Guamtech, you heard that, right? Your boy here.
Know that, and I know that your question is more than valid.
More than valid. So if he don't have a problem with it, what's your issue with it?
But it's beside the issue as far as I'm concerned, and it's partly
Not me.
because
I know you've said that many times. That it's beside the issue. I don't care. But we do.
Well,
imagine if I brought like a rabbi on to talk about Israel and Gaza. I was like, yeah, I don't really care about that. Well, then what are we doing here?
we started this conversation, I said, for example, that it appears to be the case that a description of the structure through which we see the world is a story. We see the world through a story. And so that's a remarkable thing. That's a remarkable discovery. And it's emerged probably in the last 60 years in multiple disciplines, because we have to prioritize our facts. And so we prioritize them according to a particular pattern. And there are patterns that seem to work and to propagate themselves properly and to orient cultures towards life abundant. And there are other patterns, the pattern of Cain, for example, that...
Oh, Cain. Oh, Cain. Shout out to Sarah Marie. Welcome to the party. Absolutely. We can still also question if the earth is round or flat, if the case is being opened. And the case was opened. What was the basketball player that started it, and then that B.O.B. song, and then where it just came out of nowhere? And then there's all these documentaries on it. And guess what? Guess what I did? Because I am not dogmatic, even though obviously, like Sarah, I do not believe it to be flat. I took the time to watch Eric Dubai documentaries to see what it is that they think, just in case, because I care about being right, in the sense that I want to have as many true beliefs as possible and as few false beliefs as possible. Osryan said, do you not believe in any objective truth, especially moral truths? So that is a complicated question. The short answer is no, but in the same way that there is no inherent rules to the game of chess, to the universe, but there are objectively better and worse rules in chess. That is how I believe morality works. I believe morality, if we are discussing about moral truths or morality, we are talking about the difference between the greatest suffering for as many people as possible versus the greatest well-being for all people possible. So if we're not talking about that spectrum, then I don't know what you mean when you say morality. And so if we are talking about that spectrum, then there are clearly ways that we can move objectively closer to more suffering and or towards well-being.
Lead to absolute bloody devastation. And I don't know exactly how to construe.
You can't really question if the world is flat. Is the world flat? Just did it.
That sort of truth. But we talked about the oppression of women, for example. It's like, how do you make a case on purely factual grounds that women should be treated as equals?
Wait. Okay, so yeah, if you question it, you'd be wrong. Exactly. Nobody's saying that not having the right ideas is evil. You're not evil for being wrong. I'm not sure when I said something that made you believe that I think that being wrong is evil. What I'm saying is not being willing to question, am I wrong? That is, I didn't even say evil, but I think that is wrong. That's it. Believe nothing except that anything is possible.
It's on purely factual grounds that women should be treated as equals.
It's a moral question. And
I know, that's exactly.
And I was dealing with a factual question, which is, did Jesus have a father? And you won't answer it.
Well,
it's a different kind of question.
Father and a heavenly father, like almost all mythological heroes.
So he wasn't born of a virgin then? So you're saying that Jesus was not born of a virgin?
I said, first of all, that I don't know how to mediate the fact-value dichotomy in that case. I said the same thing about the resurrection.
It's not a value. It's a simple fact. I mean, did a
Do you believe this religion or not, dude?
man have intercourse with Mary and produce Jesus? That's a factual question.
And if you don't know, that's fine. But that should be the headline of everything that you say that is relevant to religion, and it's not.
It's not a value question.
You must understand what you're being asked here. That even if you think that, say,
Hey, shout out to Mark. Welcome to the party. Said, oh boy, what's the point? Take things out of context and keep trucking. I don't know who you're referring to, but welcome to the party. Vontek said, let's say you broke down how gravity affects the world around you. You never said you could prove the existence of gravity, but you can explain how, if it exists, that it does definitely affect us. Someone constantly asking you if you could prove if gravity exists would be beside the point, right? No. Why would it? I mean, it would be aside the point from trying to do the things that if exists definitely affect. Like, let's say you broke down how gravity affects the world around you. How do I break down how gravity affects the world without proving that it exists? I literally would just use I would be like, I know based on a very, 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 very high degree of certainty that is not 100% certainty, which we can't have, that if I let go of my vape, that is going to go that way and not that way. I believe that. I could be wrong. There could be a physical anomaly that when I let go, it sucks it up into the air. I am not dogmatic about the fact that this will fall. I'm just very, 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 very confident that gravity would, you're saying how gravity affects the world around you. It would pull this down to the earth. And so let's test it. I could be wrong, but I wasn't. So, like, I don't know what you're asking. Bill Bradley said, did he just say that Jesus had a father? Jesus is the Father. The Father and Son and the Holy Spirit are different manifestations. No. So that was Peterson. That was Peterson. That was asking if a man impregnated Mary. That's what you know. Maybe you're joking, but
it's not a value question.
You must understand what you're being asked here. That even if you think that, say, the author of the biblical texts intended much more significance than a simple scientific analysis of events, Professor Dawkins is...
Look how charitable they're being. You're like, okay, well, maybe you mean this? No.
...is interested in scientific truth. That's the kind of truth that he's interested in.
Yes.
And even if you think it's irrelevant to the point of what the gospel authors were getting at, that first needs to be clarified before you can then begin actually uncovering what the stories are about. So
right. So if I'm using if I'm understanding you correctly, well, I'm checking. Please correct me if I'm not. But the same way that he's saying, okay, maybe you want to talk about how gravity works, and maybe in the way that how gravity works, proving that it exists, and it's not just density over velocity or whatever. Maybe that's not relevant to that. That goal of proving that gravity, or rather showing how gravity affects the world. You may be correct, but you can't be like, you can't be taken aback if you're breaking down how gravity affects the world around you and someone asks, can you prove that it exists? That's not besides the point. I disagree. No. Sarah Marie said, fair enough. No human interpretation is 100% objective. People smelling a shit and claiming it smells like roses. Exactly. Ash said there are historical texts dated before Jesus that talk about things like surgery and test tube babies. Yeah, that definitely doesn't speak to the divine. No, it doesn't. Carl said, by their fruits they shall be known. You could leave a Christian civilization and come back to a functioning society in 100 years. Not so much with secularism or woke. Prove it. As Ryan said, objective truths like arpe, as I saw, are rape. And I just said it, is wrong no matter what. Is there an instance where it is good in your subjective moral worldview? Not that I can think of, no. But I am, maybe there is somebody, you brought it down here. So I'm getting dark because you asked the question. So let's say that there is, easy one. Someone breaks into your house in the middle of the night. And then the person says that lives in the house said, I'm going to kill my children unless you rape them. Well, maybe you want to rape them. I don't know. I'm just saying. This is just off the top of my head. But my point is that it's just the objectivity does not exist. It does not exist. Stephen Colbert Cheese. So the Hebrew word alma in Isaiah was mistranslated in the LXX. Is that I forget what that would as Parthenos or virgin instead of young woman. Yeah, I've definitely heard that one before. I'm not even like, I'm okay with that. I don't think that necessarily changes the faith that much. I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of basic stuff in there that we could, it doesn't really matter that much because, as Jordan says, it is about the meaning of the stories, not the truth claims. But it's Christians that are the ones that are pushing the truth claims, which is why atheists are pushing back. If y'all stop saying this is true, then we would be like, okay, how do you know? If you just said, I believe this, but I don't know, they'd be like, okay, cool. And I mean, I don't know where you went to church, Smug Dog, but I think like the Trinity is pretty fundamental. So further proof that you all believe different shit and none of you belong to the same religion. Sarah said even AI can't be truly objective. Well, I think that humans can be, which are the ones creating the AI.
Bingo.
Well said. Well,
that first needs to be clarified before you can then begin actually uncovering what the stories are about. So I think Professor Dawkins is asking from a scientific perspective, and maybe you think that that scientific approach is wrong, but if you just take it for a moment, maybe this is how we find out that it is wrong. Let's take a scientific approach, ask the question, did this occur?
I think that it's inappropriate to use a question like that to attempt to undermine the validity of the entire, what would you say?
Now I'm calling him Kamala Harris.
A deep mythological enterprise.
Suppose we weren't doing that. Suppose we were asking out of interest. Suppose that we were all here to about Christians, maybe even Jungian Christians.
Everybody here is a Jungian Christian, and we did let him.
And we thought, this is interesting, over dinner. Do you think it really happened, like scientifically?
Would that be inappropriate? Would that be inappropriate? Why would that be inappropriate?
Would your answer just be, I don't know?
Yes.
And you wouldn't consider it, I mean, it's not...
Wait, well, I need to read that again. What?
Would your answer just be, I don't know?
Yes.
And you wouldn't consider it, I mean, it's not an inappropriate question to ask, just on a point of interest.
Right.
Did this really occur? And I think so often people are asking you that, and especially given the context of this conversation, we've heard everything that you're saying about metaphor and myth, but because the question is still then being asked, did it really happen? You know that that's what you're being asked. And the way you just so easily said yes, I wonder why you struggle to do that in so many other circumstances.
Right. We are now 39 minutes into this discussion. And there still was a misunderstanding from the people in the room. So I'm sorry to anyone and everybody, but this falls on Jordan Peterson. This is his ideation. This is his platform. And he invited these guests to ask him these questions, to have answers for them, and is not doing that. He is not doing that. He's ducking for sure now. I don't want to assume the worst intentions, but now I'm not sure how to see this. I mean, I think that this is a realization of, well, maybe this does beg these types of questions if I push this ideology so much. Maybe it doesn't make sense for me to say, well, this works like that and that and that and that and that and that and that with no actual scientific basis. Maybe it's better to say, well, you could think of things like this and that and that and that and that and that mythology, myth, story, archetype, whatever. That makes a difference.
I think because I don't look at the situation the same, the way that Dr. Dawkins and I look at the situation are really
based,
quite different, and at many, many, many levels. You know, so even on the meme question, for example, you know, like I know the literature on the history of religious ideas.
Yeah, but we've never tried the American identity as described by the TheIndianJesus. It's all right. It's all right. Guamsek was right long ago. He told me to wait because I'm right. And everybody will know. When the Islamists come, you will be begging. You will be begging because you are not real Christians. I'm going to assume wouldn't be holding it. No, because if you could convince me that dogma is not bad, then I would give up that view. It's not about the view that you hold. It's about the attachment to it. So again, when someone can show me there is a good place for dogma, then I will change my mind. But nobody has been able to do that. If you can do that, I will change my mind right here. And I'll be like, you know what? Ghost Ryan was right. I was wrong. I gotta take a step back and figure my shit out. But nobody has done that. Nobody has been able to do that. So maybe you'll be the first.
No, like I know.
I don't determine who's a real Christian. I determine who's not a real Christian. And if you don't believe in the resurrection or the virgin birth, then you're not a Christian.
The literature on the history of religious ideas. I see how these ideas have battled across millennia in a manner that is very reminiscent to me of the same sort of claim that Dr. Dawkins is putting forward with
unless you're talking to Smug Dog, in which case, point proven.
Regards to meme. I know that literature. Dr. Dawkins doesn't know that literature. And it's very difficult.
Oh, appeal to authority. Source, bro? Well, you just got to Google it. If you read this book, if you read this report, then you'll know. Come on, Harris!
Difficult for me to communicate from within the confines of that literature because it's extensive and deep. And we're dealing with things that we don't understand the relationship between metaphoric truth and value predicated truth and factual truth. We don't understand that. It's a big problem. There's no evidence whatsoever from the scientific perspective that we can orient ourselves in the world merely in consequence of the facts.
Sure. Sure. Agreed.
That's a fact. And it's,
yeah. Okay. Nobody's disagreeing with that.
the fact that's been detailed out in great detail.
No, not you, not you, not you. Jordan Peterson is acting like Kamala Harris.
In the last 60 years by people from a variety of different disciplines. We have to prioritize the facts.
I got you, bro. Don't worry. I got you.
That's a value hierarchy. There may be true and false ways of prioritizing facts, but you can't determine the truth or falsehood of the way that you prioritize facts by making reference to the facts. That's a big problem.
Okay, let's talk about that as perhaps a slight detour here, because I think we do need to come back to this Christ resurrection thing. But Professor Dawkins,
should I be more politically correct to not hurt your feelings?
Would you say that underlying the scientific enterprise is a fundamentally unscientific assumption? You can make scientific investigations in the world, but in order to do so, you need to choose what to prioritize. You need to choose what to investigate. You also need to value the truth. You need to have a value and a motivation for doing it in the first place. Those kinds of things cannot themselves be scientifically justified. And so does the scientific enterprise have an unscientific assumption of space?
I suppose it does. I mean, I think that maybe just be Jordan and Richard, by the way. I think that Jordan prioritizes myth and I prioritize fact. Bingo. And
in case you didn't notice, Jordan just agreed with that. Look at Jordan Peterson as he is saying this.
Myth and I think that Jordan prioritizes myth and I prioritize fact.
Headshake.
And
so that's an agreed upon thing. Richard Dawkins prioritizes fact and reality, and Jordan Peterson prioritizes myth.
I think myth is kind of vaguely interesting, but it's not the be-all and end-all of my life. I think it's somewhat secondary to scientific fact, the sort of facts that tell us how old the universe is, how old the world is.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, so did I, and we may or may not have to do so again on Monday. Am I Racist comes out on DW+. We are going to be watching the whole thing right here. Make sure you are subscribed. You are not going to want to miss that.
The history of life, the engineering achievements of landing a spacecraft on a comet. These are the things that science can do. And as I said, the predictions of quantum theory, to come back to that, the predictions of quantum theory, which are verified to a sufficient number of decimal places that it's equivalent to predicting the width of North America to one hair's breadth. Now, that is, however difficult quantum theory is to understand, that is what you can get from quantum theory. Now, the mysteries of the Bible, if they are mysteries, aren't in the same league. I mean, they just don't cut it.
See that well, okay, so let me respond to that. So one of the things that I've tried to study is the preconditions for the scientific enterprise itself. You appeared to agree with Alex that there might be presumptions, axioms that need to be accepted. I don't want to put words in your mouth because I want to get this right before the scientific enterprise can begin. So I've tried to think those through. Let me lay out a couple of them. This is partly what I've done while trying to make the case, for example, that you're more of a Christian than you think you are. So, for example, I think that the scientific enterprise is motivated by the axiomatic presumption that truth tends towards a unity. I think that it's predicated on the notion that there is a logical order that's intrinsic to the cosmos, that fundamental order is good, that it's intelligible to human beings, and that discovering that order and aligning ourselves with it makes for life more abundant. I think that the scientific enterprise is also predicated on the idea that the truth will set you free. And I think all of those axioms are religious and derived from the Judeo-Christian tradition. And if you don't believe that, you have to account for why science emerged in Europe and nowhere else in the entire history of humanity, for example.
Exactly, King. We are here to talk to each other. That is the point. And
why it's under assault from like all quarters now as that underlying metaphysic disappears. Like you haven't had to be concerned with the mythological substrate in your lifetime in some sense because it was intact. Yeah. And so the universities could flourish and you had your freedom, remarkable freedom to pursue your scientific enterprise wherever you wanted it.
Very true. Very true. And as Sarah Marie's saying, I like Dawkins and Peterson and Sheldrake. I like different perspectives. And just because you like different perspectives and just because you like somebody doesn't mean that, number one, you have to agree with every thing that they say. And it doesn't mean that you can't be passionately against something that they are saying. Like, this is the categorization, good or bad. I'm for the good thing. I'm for the bad guy. I'm for the good guy. Like, it's not that simple. Exactly, Sarah. Exactly.
But
yeah, I mean, to that point, Peterson is making a solid point right now that when Boomer Dawkins here was in university, fact and science and institutions were a lot stronger than they are right now. So I mean, I don't necessarily think that underlines his point by very much, but I definitely do agree. And guys, don't forget, every single donation comes with a treat for Morty. Look at him. He's so goddamn cute. Look how cute he is. Look how cute he is.
Freedom, remarkable freedom to pursue your scientific enterprise wherever you wanted, and people lauded you for it. Like, that time is threatened, and seriously so.
Hey, he can't be the only one. Come on, guys. There we go. Shout out to our boy, Funk Messer General. Another 5 gifted memberships. I was secretly hoping Carl would get one just because he doesn't want one. But shout out to Chris, Sharon, Patrick, David, and Ghost Note. Make sure you guys join the Discord. That is where you will get all of your membership stuff. We are doing members only live streams here on YouTube, but we don't really show up for that, so it's usually it's mostly the after party. And Sarah Marie, hey, thank you so much. Oh, he loves it. Thank you. And of course, that makes both of you the new co-sponsors of the stream. Thank you so very, very much. Very, very, very much appreciated. Don't let me forget to update the banner when we jump back in. Stephen Colbert Cheat said Dawkins isn't as on point as he used to be. Peterson and Sheldrake always promoted bad science comprehension. I'm not as familiar with Sheldrake, to be honest with you, but I guess I don't. I'm going to withhold comment on the second part, but absolutely, he's not on. But he's also like 75 now. You know, I mean, he made his he made his name, you know, in the 70s. So it's 2024, and he's still taking our boy to task. So let's give it to him. Bill Bradley said they asked themselves why the revolution did not happen in the West and decided it was not the proletariat that would manifest it. They decided that you get the revolution by taking over the levers of a culture. True. Peterson is a scientist. I definitely agree with that. Bugmaster said, I believe in the Overlord Morty, and that makes me the most dogmatic of all. Love it. Wait, me? I don't know what that is. What did I do? Like that? I was just itching my nose. Yes, I gotta. You're making me so conscious. All right, do that. Leave me alone.
For it, like that time is threatened, and seriously so. And I think it's partly because these metaphysical assumptions have now become questionable, and that's part of the reason that I'm attending to them. It's not because I don't admire the accuracy of quantum prediction, for example, or celebrate what Musk is doing with his capability of sending rockets to Mars. It's like more power to the technological enterprise. But you know what's happening in the universities? It's awful. And that's not a scientific problem. It's okay.
I agree about that.
Okay.
I think it's an interesting question why science emerged in Europe. I mean, and I'm not enough of a historian to know. It is even possible that Christianity did have something to do with that.
Shout out again to our sponsors. Very, very, very much appreciated. It's like the what's that show? Bewitched, right? Or was it I Dream of Jeannie? Which one was the nose one? That was definitely Bewitched. Bill Bradley said you get the crossover of Marxism and feminism, destroying the nuclear family at this point. Communists see it as a foundation of capitalism, and feminists see it as a foundation of patriarchy. They both think it has to go. Yep. And that's why we are still in the process of the pendulum swinging, and we need to find that middle ground where, because secular conservatism, for lack of a better term, is just too big to have the Republican Party be the conservative party. It just will not work. There are too many people who are not smart enough, who don't care enough to look into the values, and they don't believe in God, and therefore they think Republicans are bad and stupid and believe in Sky Daddy, and that's it. That's the reality. That's the reality of how people think. So it doesn't matter if you know that that is a stupid way to think about the world. We all know that that's a stupid way to think about the world, but that doesn't change the fact that that's the way they think about the world. Also, at the end of the day, Dawkins and Peterson agree. They're both cultural Christians. They don't believe in they don't believe the Bible is real, but think it's good for society. It's neoconservatism in a nutshell. And again, if we could get the language on par, where they're both saying the same things with the same words, then exactly, they're already in the same position. Peterson just came from this way, and Dawkins just came from this way. Why are we arguing when people are over here? Come on, man. Exactly. Lots of Republicans do not believe in God, and that has to be taken into account when this political messaging. And I don't know how to explain to you, if you are a Christian who believes and don't see the issues with the level of Christianity in politics, then like that's just your privilege. I hate to use the woke language, but privilege is invisible to those who experience it. Shout out to Caleb. Welcome to the party. So this pod was interesting. Peterson isn't wrong in the stories of the Bible being true in human culture. I think his point is more on the Bible's divine-like predictions of human archetypes. Great. Welcome to the party.
Historian to know. It is even possible that Christianity did have something to do with that, and I wouldn't categorically deny that.
Well, yeah, now that there's a bunch of churches waving pride flags.
But that doesn't in any way increase my trust in the validity of Christian propositions.
I said shit. Me too. Caleb says, so the Bible may not be a history book, but I think it is the most fundamental psychology book. I'm not too familiar with Jung and his theories, but I think the Bible is among the same path as his. I would definitely disagree with this, but I would not, if this is what every Christian thought, then I would not have the level of issue with Christianity that I do have. I think that's a fair assessment, right? I think that's fair. Funkmaster General said, sorry guys, lunch is cool, and Morty, and all but Morty rules you. You cannot escape the Overlord. You cannot escape.
Like the resurrection, the virgin birth and miracles, and Jesus is the Son of God. Christianity may have had some kind of historical facilitating effect that led to the Renaissance, that led to the scientific revolution. And that would be a very interesting historical analysis. But
that's good. I mean, I am screenshotting that for merch. I'm too broke to give you a free one, but half price. Good one. Shout out to Ronald. Welcome. So we have to acknowledge that Dawkins is interested in only what science can demonstrate is factual. Peterson accepts all of that and takes it one more step further because he kind of sees more. Yeah, I think that's fair. And the aspect of like what Dawkins wants to know in this moment, whether like where they're taking it, where they reside, like I still think it's a reasonable thing to expect that if you invite people to come on your podcast and they ask you a question, to answer it. Call me crazy. Shout out to Don't Want to Display Name on YouTube. I feel you there. So what are you talking about? Dawkins was a dick in this interview. He's like, I'm a Darwinist, so I don't find anything you have to say of interest. That's straight up How is it intellectually dishonest to be honest about your state of intellect?
What?
Would you prefer that he said it was of interest to him when it wasn't? Because that would be intellectual dishonesty. Oh, yeah, guys. Yeah, guys. The only good dogma was the movie. Bingo. Shout out to Kevin Smith.
And that would be a very interesting historical analysis, but it doesn't bear upon the truth of the propositions of the Christian religion.
Okay, let's concentrate on the resurrection for a moment. Now, unfortunately, see, this is part of the problem. Part of the problem.
I do not. I very much have interest, which is why I'm dedicating 2 hours of my night to talk about it. I definitely care about it. I just don't think that it's true, and neither does he. So and he went there. I'm not understanding what you mean. What's the intellectual dishonesty part? Intellectual dishonesty means saying a thing that doesn't align with what's in your head. So if you are not interested by something, and then you say, I'm not interested in it, that's being intellectually honest.
Problem with discussions like this is that the mode of approach that's taken by the mythological
why wouldn't he have accepted the invite?
Is to circle and wander. Like it doesn't, because you have to shine light on the problem from multiple perspectives. That's why it's often encoded in image, for example, or in drama. It's not the same tack as a purely propositional and logical argument, so it's more difficult to make. But let me tell you a story that I believe bears on the resurrection.
Oh,
you tell me what you think
Jesus.
about it, because this is a very difficult story to account for. It's going to take me about 5 minutes because it's complicated, but there's no way around it, I don't think. So,
all right.
There's a strange scene in the Gospels where Christ tells his followers that unless he's lifted up like the bronze serpent, there can be no hope for the redemption of mankind unless he's lifted up like the bronze serpent in the desert. Okay, this is a very strange thing for someone to say. So right. You need to know what the story of the bronze serpent in the desert was and what it signifies. And I think we can understand it psychologically. I really do believe this. And the concordance of that story, which was generated millennia before with Christ's utterance, is something I just cannot imagine how anyone put those two things together, especially given the lack of explicit understanding about the relationship. So let me detail it.
Fair. But that is also a logical fallacy, an argument from personal incredulity. Just because you cannot understand something doesn't mean anything about it.
So there's a scene in the Exodus story, where the Israelites are doing their usual fractious foolishness and whining about the fact that they're lost and bemoaning the loss of their privileges under the Pharaoh and complaining about the power dynamics of their leadership and just generally being followers of Cain, let's say. And God, the cruel God that you refer to, decides to send among his suffering subjects poisonous snakes to bite them.
So the snakes are biting. And Smugdog says, I'll admit that I believe in the claims of the resurrection and such, but I know I can't prove it's true. And I'm even willing to admit I don't know if it is, but I believe it is. Awesome. Good for you. I have no desire to take that away from you. I have no desire to be like, well, how do you know? Unless and until you use those beliefs to try to control my life or treat me differently because I have different beliefs. That's where this all comes from. And I can definitely understand how a normal, I would assume you're a normal, Christian person who is nice and whatever. But there's a lot of people out there who, in the same way that there's these atheists who will just go after people who believe in God to make fun of them for the sake of it, happens the other way too, a lot more than you would think. As somebody before was saying, that there's a lot of people that call themselves Christians, but not very many people who act Christ-like. And I don't want, I don't want to blame you for those people, but it's hard. It's hard. So I apologize if I was a little too hard on you. But this is the intellectually honest way to be a Christian, in my personal humble opinion. Yeah, right. Just me human. Shout out. 1 like equals 1. Fight. Hell yeah. Stephen Coergy said humans believe all manner of things with insufficient evidence. And we should constantly be trying to eliminate those things that we don't have evidence to believe and find evidence for the things that we do believe. Caleb said, I don't see how Dawkins wants to bring down the belief system is helpful. That scale of anarchism would send the world back decades in moral consensus and send the world into nihilistic spiral. That's what we need because of the fact that these spiritual values are real, and they are definitely not what is in the Bible or the Quran or any of these things. Then we need to go through that. And if we are to ever get closer to God, if there is a God, do you not want to be as close to God as you possibly can? If that is the case, then until and unless you can prove that there is absolutely no way to get closer to God without doing this, I don't know what to tell you. I see this as standing on a ledge. This is my comparison. When people talk like this, you're standing on a ledge on the 50th floor. Outside the window of a 50th floor on a skyscraper. Like, I'm not gonna fall. If I go over there, if I don't stand on the ledge, then I'm gonna fall. I gotta stand on the ledge. The only way to not fall is to stand on the ledge. But you could just go inside. And you might have to, jimmy yourself around, and maybe you'll fall trying to get inside. But objectively, if your goal is not dying, then being inside is better than being outside the 50th story of a building. And so, again, unless and until we can prove that Christianity and the religions that we have are not the equivalent of standing on the ledge in my example, then I will continue to search. If and when there is a reason to believe that we've got as far as we can get, then I'll stop. I don't know why anyone would want to stop. Shout out to Gojo, something like that. Welcome. Shout out to Buddhism. We also got Gene. Welcome to the party. And Caleb said, does the world survive that level of hedonism in the aftermath? We don't need hedonism. That's the problem. The problem is that we have this false dichotomy of Christianity, or well, let me just put it this way: this false dichotomy of religion or hedonism. That is not real. That is not real. I am an atheist, and I am not a hedonist. I am living proof that that is not the dichotomy. There are many, as Anne said before, there are many Republicans, conservatives, whatever, that don't believe in God. So clear, and there are many leftists who do believe in God. So clearly that is not the determining factor. Shout out to Gojo, said I'm an atheist and also a hedonist. There you go. And good for you, but I'm not. And so clearly, if you can be an atheist and a hedonist, or you can be an atheist or not a hedonist, or you could be a Christian and a hedonist, or an Christian and not a hedonist, then clearly hedonism has nothing to do with whether or not you're a Christian or claim Christian. Because if you're a real Christian, to invoke the no true Scotsman fallacy, but if you actually follow what the Christian values and claims and things say, then you're not going to be a hedonist. Bill said, what society has become more secular and not become more hedonistic? You as an individual is one thing, but I'm not sure there is a societal example. I agree, but there's a first time for everything, right? It's because clearly it's working out so well because we see a lot more people going into Christianity and conservative values and people moving away from wokeism and stuff, right? That's what we see in America today, right? So clearly wrapping everything in one party around religion works. Anne said, I believe in God and I can care less about others' opinions on it. I would align most of it with Orthodox Christianity if I attended a service, but I feel that go either way if I did. I hear that. Shout out to Think MTB. Welcome. So the moral structure of society is in decay. Yeah. So Christianity is not doing its thing because it doesn't matter if it has the best values. If people don't follow the values, then it's useless, right? So all right, let's dive back in here.
To send among his suffering.
Yeah, we were talking about the snake, and Jesus was saying you have to treat me like the snake, and you have to know the story of the snake.
Just generally being followers of Cain, let's say, and God, the
transes,
cruel God that you refer to,
not the gays, the transes.
decides to send among his suffering subjects poisonous snakes to bite them, which seems a little over the top, you might say. But in response to that, I would say there's no situation so terrible that some damn fool can't make it infinitely worse. And so that's what happens to the Israelites. So they're
but Bill, if people are not believing in the values, we already have Christianity. Are you thinking that there's a lot of people who don't know what Christianity is, and therefore they are atheist hedonists? People know what they may not be very good at, or they may not be well versed in it, but people know what Christianity is. People know what God is, and they've chosen to reject it. So it doesn't matter what the values are. If they're rejected, then they're not being followed. You could have the best idea in the world. If nobody gives a shit about it, then it does not matter.
Being bitten by these poisonous snakes, and the leaders of the people who've wandered from God go to Moses and they say, look, we know you've got a pipeline to God, and there's a lot of snakes and they're doing a lot of biting, and maybe you could just ask him to call off the serpents. And so Moses, who's not very happy with the Israelites either, decides that he'll go talk to God. And God says something very strange. He doesn't say, to hell with the Israelites, more snakes is what they need. And he doesn't say, well, I produced a snake, so I'll get rid of them. He says something very...
Caleb, as y'all got a Discord, you goddamn right we do. I just dropped the link in the chat. It is free to join, but guys, if you are a member, there is extra channels and the after party. So consider joining if you're not scared off by the joke that the Indian Jesus has a cult and disciples. It's a joke. Sam Marie said, I too believe in what many call God. That's why I chose to get baptized at the age of 14. I unsubscribed to the very church this year as it's become too liberal, and I used to be a leftist. This was happening.
Very peculiar. He says, have the Israelites gather together all their bronze and make a giant stake and put a serpent on.
Like I said, the American identity. Very much Enlightenment, classical liberals and Christian-based ideas without the dogma. You don't have to believe in the thing to follow the values. So do you like people being nice? Do you like people working for what they are earning, keeping what they have worked for? Do you like people having grace and giving forgiveness? Do you care about family? Do you care about tradition? Do you care about ritual? Do you care about community? Do you care about family? What is the God that you need to believe in to care about those things? None.
On it, a bronze serpent, which is the symbol of healing, by the way, that even the Greeks use. That is symbol of Asclepius. It's a very old symbol, very widespread. It's still used by physicians today. And then he says, put it up where the Israelites can see it. And if they go look at it,
this is where the right is right now. They're like, well, okay, we can't get real Christianity, so let's just get, like, maybe you say you believe in God, even though you got tattoos and you wear different types of clothes and you eat shellfish and you don't actually not eat meat on Fridays and you don't go to church and you don't do any of those things, you don't pray to God, but you're a Christian because you're a good person, right? This is exactly what is happening. This is exactly what is happening.
Then the serpent's poison won't harm them. And I read that and I thought, that's exactly what psychotherapists discovered as they all converged in the 20th century on the utility of exposure therapy as curative. And that's the pharmacon. A little of the poison that hurts you cures you. It's the same principle that's used for vaccines, by the way.
Exactly. Think MTB says Christianity provided a moral structure that was agreed upon. While people are leaving the church, they, for the most part, continue to practice most of the values. But even within the Christian community, the moral structure is not agreed upon. All the time in this very chat, on this very small channel, we will have Christians of different mindsets arguing about their own faith. So you cannot come to me and say this is the answer when you are giving me 5 answers. That all made no sense.
So
it's cultural appropriation.
What we saw in psychotherapy is that if you get people to voluntarily confront the things that are poisoning them, so to speak, that hurt their life, that frighten them and disgust them, they become braver and more well-adapted. It isn't that they become less afraid, because that's been very carefully tested. It's that they learn by watching themselves expose themselves to the things that they once fled from, that there's more to them than they think, and that generalizes across situations. And it's the same mechanism that underlies their learning as such, because children, when they learn, put themselves on the edge of ragged disaster, and that's where they advance. And so what God tells the Israelites, essentially, in this dramatic endeavor, is that
Guys, really quick, if I gotta ask you a huge favor, just share this video. It doesn't matter if you think nobody's gonna click on it. Just telling YouTube that, hey, I want other people to see this will do so much for the channel. It's free, it's easy, it helps out so much. Thank you.
It's better for them to face the terrors that confront them than to be shielded from the terrors or for them to hide from them. That they'll be better people if they face what's right in front of them, even if it's poisonous.
You mean like this nihilistic society? Yeah, agreed.
And so it's like, okay, that's pretty damn interesting and quite remarkable. And then that symbol is used, for example, by the Greeks to symbolize medicine as such. But then there's this additional weird twist, which is Christ identifies with that bronze serpent. You think, okay, that's a very peculiar thing for anyone to do. What exactly does that mean?
All right, let's grab some of these before we jump back in here. Bill Bradley said there is a cut rose metaphor. Like a cut rose, you can remove a society from its moral foundations and it can survive for a time, but it will decay. I agree. People move away from Christianity, but you have to agree that people are often not just acting altruistically, even if they want all the things that are listed. Agreed. But they're also not doing that now based on Christian values. And people are not agreeing to those Christian values. So if we can have those exact values and get more people agreeing on them, then no matter what, if you agree with the values, more people having those values is better. Oh, we got a hungry dance. He's so hungry. Look at him. Oh my God, he's so hungry. Please be my dog. Oh my God, he's so hungry. The question will remain, what is the mechanism we use to get people to embrace their better nature? You know, that is definitely that's definitely a big question. But that is, just because that question exists doesn't mean we shouldn't ask it or seek the answer. Smug Dog said, Judaism is all the bad parts and Christians who never heard of the Buddha somehow ripped him. I did not say that. Caleb said, we've already seen the movement towards hedonism in Western society with the decay of a moral system. When morals become subjective, those in power decide them always. A.E. government. I.E. government? Yeah, agreed. Thank you. Guam Tag. Very much appreciated. Appreciate you, bro. No.
Well, so then you might say, well, what's the most poisonous thing that you could possibly face if you dramatize the idea of poison itself?
If we dramatize the idea of poison itself, what would be the most poisonous? I'm going to assume he's going to say something like evil or the devil or Satan. Or
if you wanted people to face what was worst so that they could become strongest, and the answer to that is the most unjust possible painful death and the ultimate confrontation with malevolence. And that's what's dramatized in the Passion story. Now, does that redeem everyone? Maybe. Maybe the idea is that if we were courageous enough to look death in the face unflinchingly, and if we spent our time putting our finger on the source of evil itself.
And what is that source of evil? Do we just, it's demons, because in the Bible they say demons. Or maybe if that really exists, there is a way to scientifically and objectively determine, oh, hey, it's right here. This is where it's coming from. Maybe not today or tomorrow or in 100 years. But if that is your goal and that is what you believe, then tell me why that is not a worthy goal. Shout out to Rowdy Rob. Welcome to the party. So the most poisonous thing would probably be envy. Great movie. But yeah, definitely looks bad. Welcome to the party.
Is that if we were courageous enough to look death in the face unflinchingly, and if we spent our time putting our finger on the source of evil itself, it would revitalize ourselves to a degree that would be unimaginable. Now, as a biologist, you could think about this too, because I don't remember the philosopher said it. I think it was Whitehead, but that might be wrong. We let our ideas die instead of us, right? So human beings have evolved so that we can undergo these deaths of our own ideas and the rejuvenation that emerges in consequence of that. That seems to be something like evolution towards what? Towards the process of sacrificial logos as the thing that redeems human beings. And that makes us biologically unique too.
So humans are biologically unique because we can see that we are deserving of sacrifice. And if we give sacrifice, then we are giving into our nature. And that makes us biologically unique. Okay, what does that have to do with people in general following these values.
Because we can die in ideation and imagination instead of dying in actuality. Does that fundamentally redeem us? Does that deliver us from death and evil? Maybe. Like, the job isn't done, obviously.
Richard, the story.
Agreed. Agreed. Shout out to Funk, Messer General. Oh my goodness. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Adding to his total. Said, I'm out. Make sure Guamtech stays level-headed and polite in the after party. I will do my best, but he's a strong man. He's a strong man, baby. Thank you, thank you, thank you very, very much appreciated. Hope you have a fantastic night. You enjoy that fire pit, brother. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Maybe. Like, the job isn't done, obviously.
Richard, the story that we've just heard, the Old Testament bronze serpent, it's rhyming with the New Testament Christ depicting himself as that bronze serpent. I think, from Jordan, if I may, as Richard suggests, from what I've heard you say before on this same story, there's something about that harmony between that New Testament Jesus and that Old Testament story, which is so profound and so impressive that it's difficult to imagine it having sort of naive human authorship. What do you make of that story and of that assertion?
Well,
shout out to whoever Fat Dong is, who just joined the Discord. If you are a member, let me know. Well, either way, let me know what your name on here is, if you just joined. And if you are a member, let me know so I can give you the full permission.
it doesn't impress me. I mean, I don't understand why you would say that has... I don't think Jordan actually said it had divine inspiration. Maybe he did.
Not divine inspiration necessarily, but more than just, as I say, naive human authorship. Not like someone just sat down and wrote stories.
At minimum, it's a...
Well, exactly, Carl. That's exactly the point. That is precisely the point. I was a Christian, and I did believe in Jesus. And as soon as I found out that it doesn't make sense, I let go of those ideas that I didn't have evidence for. That is being intellectually honest. So if you believe something, you're not willing to... So if you believe that what's something that could... You believe that chocolate, whatever flavor ice cream you like, is the best flavor. Have you tasted every flavor? Would it be impossible for you to taste a flavor that you didn't even conceive that could have existed that would be better than whatever your current flavor is? Why is God different?
Staggeringly brilliant literary move, especially given the fact that that relationship hasn't been explicated before.
Do you think, for example, if you were looking in scripture for something which would identify this as a God-given text, maybe you as a scientist would look for some scientific information. It might have told you the shape of DNA or something like that. But do you think
Jordan actually thinks,
yeah, we can perhaps get onto that. But do you think that a literary brilliance of a similar kind or a similar intensity, that if the Bible is not a scientific text, you might be looking for some scientific fact which you couldn't have otherwise known? Is it possible that some kind of genius moral move or literary move could also indicate that this is something more impressive?
More or less.
Shout out to 42&0 Studios. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Said Hogwarts isn't real. Tell me you're a millennial without telling me you're a millennial. I said Hogwarts isn't real, but the story is still real, and we all seem to understand the story. Right. So when people are trying to use the rules of potions class in American politics, then I will focus my issues on people who believe that Hogwarts is real. Here's the thing, though. The Christians do actually believe, not these people, but the actual Christians actually do believe. That's the issue. And then when people who don't believe are like, okay, I'm willing to entertain this. How do you know that is real? Well, I don't. Like, okay, then what are we talking about?
Move or literary move could also indicate that this is something more impressive. You more or less asked me whether what would impress me, and I'm a naive literalist, and so I would say, if any prophet had said something like, the world is just one object in rotating around the sun, something like that. They never do. I mean, it's always some kind of moral lesson which leaves me cold.
Well, why is it that there is no... I mean, they say that God meets you where you're at, right? And there are some people who just care about scientific truth. That's what they know. That's their profession.
Well,
Someone like Richard. Why is there not anything in the Bible for them?
Oh, I think the idea that sacrifice is the basis of the community is a remarkable and scientifically valid hypothesis. I think that it's precisely akin to the, what would you say, to the process of cortical maturation. I think they're the same thing. Because as we mature, we move farther away from the immediate gratification of our self-centered emotional and motivational needs to a ethos of care that brings our future self into the picture and a wider and wider array of other people.
Absolutely. And Christianity is great for that. But some people cannot believe in Christianity.
And I think that's associated with cortical maturation. In fact, I think the purpose of the cortex, a purpose of the cortex is to bring the dynamics of the short-sighted underlying motivational and emotional systems into the kind of harmony that allows for communal existence and the protection of the future at the same time that the present is, what would you say, cared for and attended to. That there's a kind of harmony there. There's also a pattern there. It's not arbitrary at all. And I think we know this biologically, is that the number of ways, and I think we already alluded to this, the number of ways that a society can organize itself so that each individual can harmonize their own future with the present and do that simultaneously with many other people, there's a very limited universe of possibilities there. Limited universe.
Richard asked you before about the difference between a story or an idea naturally evolving over the course of numerous manuscripts and throughout human history, and the idea of it being divinely inspired. And you were seeming to imply that these are almost interchangeable concepts. Now, if that's the case, when you say that...
Wait, what are interchangeable concepts? So a story developing,
naturally evolving over the course of numerous manuscripts and throughout human history, and the idea of it being divinely inspired. And you were seeming to imply that these are almost interchangeable concepts. Now, if that's the case, when you say that this divine spirit behind the Bible is actually just the way that it has evolved throughout the human history, throughout the different manuscripts that we've had, then saying that that is what divinity is, I think, for you may drag the mundane up into the realm of divinity. But I think for people like Richard and for many people listening, what it doesn't say is drags the divine down to the realm of the mundane.
Very well put, yes.
Well, I don't know why it would drag the divine down into the realm of the mundane if we're speaking of something like the straight and narrow path of harmony between multiple modes of being. I don't think it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's the material reaching upward or the divine descending downward. I don't think there's any difference between those two things.
You don't. That's exactly right. That's the problem.
Exactly. I was just about to notice how he said, to me, for me, it's all totally cool and fine. We know that, bro. That's not news. You've invited people who don't think those things to talk about why you think those things.
I don't think it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's the material reaching upward or the divine descending downward. I don't think there's any difference between those two things.
You don't. That's exactly right. That's the problem.
Well, I don't.
You don't see the difference.
Well, look at it this way. So, for example,
the old Christian justification for slavery. I expected it to show up at some point.
In this conversation, you know this to be the case. Like, there's various ways that this conversation could go sideways, right? Seriously, like either of us could try to win. Either of us could try to demonstrate our...
What did he say? Either of us could try to win. What do I tell you guys all the time? Stop trying to win an argument and just have the conversation. He is right. This could have gone very bad. Very bad for them. Very bad for us viewing. And I think despite it's a little esoteric, I think this is a very interesting conversation. And that's because they're interested in discussing what they believe with each other.
Intellectual superiority, right? Each of us could misrepresent the other. Or we could both try, and I do think we are in fact trying that, and I think Alex is helping along with that just fine. We could try to follow the thread of the exploratory truth and see if we could get somewhere. Now, I don't think there is any difference between that, by the way, and what's expressed in the biblical text as the spirit of the Logos. That's why we have dialogue.
I'm very interested in the possibility that truths emerge through evolving manuscripts. Now, that's a very interesting idea. And it's totally different from divine inspiration. And I want to pursue it because I don't believe in divine inspiration, but I would be prepared to believe in evolving manuscripts.
Well, I would.
That's called non-dogma. So I just want to see, obviously we're not going to be able to finish all of this. Okay, this is what I wanted to see. So we'll end here on this chapter. They're going to talk about the divine, the mundane, and the biological reality of dragons. Yes, dragons. Shout out to a guy in a van down by the river. Said people who bring up slavery never understand it. I don't know which side you are coming from, but I think if you're on my side that I agree, but either way, probably. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party.
Well, I would say this is why I had set forward the possibility of taking a look particularly at Mircea Eliade, because that's where you'd find the best work. He's brilliant. The history of, I believe that if you studied the history of religious ideas, it's a 3-volume manuscript, or The Sacred and the Profane, which is probably his single best work, that you'd see profound analogies between the manner in which you've been construing the world biologically, including the trains of thought that led you to the development of the idea of the meme. I really believe that.
Well, analogies is one thing, but is it the same thing?
I think it's the same. I do. I think, look, I don't know. That's why I'd like your opinion on it. You know?
And would you be okay with that? Yikes.
Oh, well, seriously, like, it's a complicated question. It's a complicated question. Most people don't know both literatures. There's not a lot of people to discuss this sort of thing with. Camille Paglia, I talked to Camille Paglia about this. She studied the work of a man named Erich Neumann. Neumann wrote a book called Origins and History of Consciousness, which is a work of genius, and also another book called The Great Mother, which is a study of the symbolism of the feminine. It's a great book. Paglia told me that she believed that if the Academy would have turned to Erich Neumann, who's a student of Jung, although the greatest student of Jung, and maybe one who surpassed him, that the entire culture war that's torn the universities apart wouldn't have happened. People don't know this literature.
Imagine that. And if people don't know this literature, then talk about that literature, my guy.
And let me give,
like, where's your Sunday special that is about whatever literature you're talking about?
An example of this. You tell me what you think about this. Okay, so I spent a fair bit of time studying the psychophysiology of the hypothalamus. Okay, so the hypothalamus is set up, it's got 2 halves, basically. One half deals with fundamental motivated states, hunger, thirst, defensive aggression, sexuality, and so forth. And when those areas are dominated, the biologically relevant goal is activated and perceptions are oriented towards that goal. Okay, so now then you might ask yourself, well, what happens if all those biologically motivated states are satiated? And the answer seems to be is that the other half of the hypothalamus kicks in and it mediates exploratory behavior. And so the default structure of the mammalian nervous system is, if satiated or in doubt, explore and gather new information. There's no difference between that and hero mythology.
Okay, but then find new information by what means?
And gather new information.
So explore and gather new information by what means, if not using the scientific process?
There's no difference between that and hero mythology.
Unless you're saying that hero mythology is equivalent to the scientific process.
They are the same thing.
No, they're not.
They're the same thing. The dragon fight, for example, which is the oldest story we have. It's coded in the Mesopotamian mythology. The dragon fight story is explore the dangerous unknown, discover the treasure that revitalizes the community. There's no difference between that and the science that you practice. They're the same thing.
No, they're not, dude. There is a process. There is a process so that everybody does the same thing, because of the fact that there is so much subjectivity that it is meant to get rid of that as much as we can so that we can get as close to objectivity as we can. Talking about a hero mythology does not have a mechanism for that. Unless I do not understand talking about hero mythology, in which case I'm very open to learning. But I'm pretty sure that there's no self-correcting mechanism in hero mythology. Am I wrong about that?
What do you think of that,
It's the
Richard?
same story.
That's what
I don't know what to make of that. I mean, you say they're the same story. You've analogized the dragon fight to
Yes!
Well, how many
fighting.
Yes! It's time for the dragons! Hey guys, I have been losing my voice, so what do I do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? All right. So, all right. Well, all right. We'll keep it raging. We'll keep it raging. If, as you guys know, I like to keep it, nice and short at 2.5 hours. But if you would like to keep the party raging, you know how to do it. And of course, it comes with a treat for Morty. Time to talk about the dragons.
Same story. You've analogized the dragon fight to
well, how many dragons have
Satan.
you overcome in your life?
I'm not
None.
interested in dragons. I'm interested in reality.
I said, shit, me too.
Okay, so okay. So I read a book a while back that described the biological reality of the dragon. Say, well, there's no such thing as a dragon. It's
Who's smug?
like, okay, is there such a thing as a predator?
Of course.
Well, that's a meta category.
Okay, so Fat Dong, to the Discord members, Fat Dong is Caleb. So Caleb says, I'll just leave this here. Christianity's God may not be the most true, but is the closest thing we have to a moral truth. Tearing it down and leaving its followers in a vacuum to determine their own moral beliefs would turn the world into a powder keg. All those criminals that found their correction in God. I understand the want to find the highest form of morality, but tearing down other systems without having the map to your perfect morality is a recipe for destruction of humanity. And when man creates his own moral structure, I know what's best is always a window for totalitarianism. Secular and religious thinkers can all agree man is flawed by nature. So it wouldn't be best for humanity to leave the concept of morality to a being outside of man's manipulation. Even if man said it thousands of years ago, the idea that God keeps us, it's the idea of God that keeps us grounded. And again, I don't disagree with any of that. I just don't think that that's the best we can do. And again, as somebody can prove, nope, that's the best we can do, then my job is done. This channel is over. I have nothing else to talk about. I completely agree with all of that. And that is why I have no desire to just rip religion or beliefs away from anybody. What I would like to do is provide an alternative for those who have no moral structure. Unless we are disagreeing that there's a huge portion of at least Americans that do not have a moral structure other than government says. Those are the people at this very moment that need the moral structure. Christians, like, you're good for now. But when all of the people who are these, smart, I know all the source of this, when they have a moral structure and an understanding, you will be lost because you only know one book. And it's fucking annoying how they go, well, source, as if you can't have a fucking original idea without it being co-signed by somebody who has letters after their name or is in the government. I get that. But that's why I don't want to take anything away from anyone. What I want is to present something new that can exist next to, simultaneously with Christianity, so that we all want to be here. Politically, we all want to be here. I do not give a fuck if you get here from Christianity or if you get here from some other secular way, as long as you are here. So the here-ness of it, saying there is a here, is not, what did you say? Tearing it down and leaving its followers in a vacuum. It's providing additional ways to get to the same exact endpoint. So I agree with you. I haven't written it out, but I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe I should, right? I mean, I don't have it necessarily fully fledged out as a manifesto just yet. I mean, I've only been doing this for about a year or so, and coming about 2 years. And anyway, And I'm not trying to be an authority that says, I know that this is the way we should go, and that if you listen to me, then I have all the answers. No, I'm saying we collectively do not have all the answers. I'm saying we collectively, if as a country at least, if not a species, cannot all fit in the same exact ideology. But as long as we are following the same values, that is not an issue. As long as we are following the same values. So again, we are not taking Christianity away from anybody. All we're doing is giving those hedonist atheists who aren't as smart and virtuous as me, we're giving all of them something that they don't have a moral structure, which is exactly what you're saying. Without a moral structure, society crumbles. But with only one moral structure that nobody follows, guess what happens? The same thing.
What's the category of predator? Bear, eagle, if you're a primate. Fire? Is fire a predator?
No.
Well, it's complicated because a fire kills you. Okay, so is there a worse predator than serpentine, flying, fire-breathing reptile? What?
Shout out to Sarah Marie, and I'm here because of you. And I'm Morty. Well, thank you so very, very much for being here. There you go. He's getting tired. He won't even reach his neck over. Thank you. So very, very much appreciated.
Is that not the imagistic equivalent of predator? So in what way, if predator is real, in what way isn't dragon real? It doesn't take that much imagination to.
Bro, did you really just say, well, predators are real, so how is that any different than dragons? Because a dragon is an archetypical predator. Well, because you can touch a lion. You can't touch a dragon. I mean, I definitely wouldn't suggest it. But you could.
To see the identity. And then wouldn't the fundamental task of edible primates be to figure out how to overcome the dragon forever?
I don't know why you say
yeah, why use the word dragon? Just say ultimate predator.
dragon. I mean, we have lions, we have tigers, we have saber-tooths, we have
Why not
tyrannosaurs
abstract?
out there.
Right, but why not abstract? Because
Why would you abstract? What is the benefit of abstracting? Instead of saying, hey, beware of predators. That is much something that can be understood way better by the average person than, well, the dragon is a representation of this, and this is what you don't want, and you want to avoid that, and just bad things are bad.
it's for the same reason that we have the term predator. Like we have the term bear, lion, Komodo dragon. Well, you make an amalgamation, you say, well, the relevant set of features is an image. Well, what's the image? Predator as such. What's the image of that? The dragon that never disappears.
Where are you getting this? Where you're just saying that. You're just saying things. Well, dragon is a predator in stories, and so predators exist, therefore dragons exist.
What? Bingo.
Oh, stupid. I meant to give him the stupid one.
And then there's a twist on that, which is so cool. It's so interesting because you can imagine rabbit mythology, which would be something like predator appears, freeze.
Yeah, Caleb, you're definitely right. You should have a special Discord as a place to map out something. Well, I mean, that is exactly what it is. I mean, I don't have, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. I do have, this collection of ideas. I was born into the Catholic Church. I was confirmed in the Methodist Church, and I entered college as a Christian who had never entertained the atheist mindset. But I had never read the Bible, so I read the Bible, studied psychology, understood how people could believe things that are not true, studied philosophy, and realized that there's other ways to come across these values than Christianity, and realized that it's not that special. And so, I mean, it's every time we have, every time I'm live, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it, every single one of those is a conversation to help us collectively come up with that. Because I need Christians, I need atheists, I need people from other countries, I need people, because this is something that should be the through line for humanity because of the scientific aspect of the fact that we are humans. And maybe we don't even get half as close to that. But if we get any closer to this, what is called God, if that exists, and we, this is another thing I'll do often. Let's say God is up here, right? I purposely, my hand is outside the frame, right? Let's say that God is unreachable. And right now with the Bible, we have here. Again, unless and until you can prove to me that we can't at least get here, then I will continue to do my work. I will continue to have these conversations so that one day I will be able to be on a platform like that and not be rambling like this and be able to articulate everything that that I want to say in a way that other people can understand it. So you are part of that right now. You are part of it right now. So thank you for being here. All of you are helping me with this. All right, diving back in here.
Mythology, which would be something like predator appears, freeze. But that's not the human story. The human story is predator appears.
It's a dragon.
There's a treasure somewhere, right? That's a completely different pathway of evolutionary significance. Like the way that we construe the world isn't freeze like predator. It's like, oh, there's a predator. Maybe there's something valuable lurking in our conflict with it. You know?
Okay, maybe I really am dumb. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Our sticks and our spears that enable our fragile bodies to stand up against the dragons of the world.
So a dragon is a pictorial representation of the abstracted concept of a predator.
Yes.
As you say,
But we already have the word predator. Like, if we didn't have the word predator, then an abstraction that demonstrates what a predator is would be useful. But we have the word, concept, and image of predator already. Why abstract that concept? What is the benefit to abstracting that concept?
already have the term predator. And so it might be useful in art, in narrative, to, I mean, you can't paint an abstraction.
We had the image way before we had the word.
Sure, okay.
But that's a seriously important thing to understand.
But now we have the word. We have the word predator. And maybe if we were doing art, maybe if we were all going to sort of draw a picture or tell a story, or we wanted to invent a story to give our children a good moral message, we might invent this dragon or use this dragon as...
Well, we do, always.
Sure.
Exactly. So you're saying that people are, simultaneously you're saying people are too stupid to understand the concept of a predator without an abstraction, but also it's so sophisticated that you need to read the literature to understand it.
What?
Make that make sense.
Do it continually.
Exactly, we do.
We do it with Harry Potter.
But,
we do it with the Lord of the Rings. We do it with the Avengers.
But when you say,
there's no escaping from it.
But when you say the biology of a dragon,
Like, and again, nobody is claiming that in Game of Thrones the existence of the Moon Door is. We understand the concept of this kid having unfettered power and not giving a little care about human lives and caring more about wanting to see him fly through the Moon Door than the sanctity of the person's life. Okay, but we can have that without. We don't need the concept of a Moon Door to understand the concept of people caring more about their own entertainment than the lives of others. Why do we need the abstraction?
you must understand how that can be misleading as to the enterprise that you're engaging in, because we're talking here about narrative, we're talking here about art, we're talking here about representations in literature.
I don't think the category of dragon is any less valid than the category of lion.
Any less.
What? Oh, hell no.
You don't think the category of lion is more valid than the category of dragon? And you are frustrated that people don't understand you. Okay, dude.
Biological.
Well, it depends on your level.
Let's hear that again.
Less valid than
Representations in literature.
I don't think the category of dragon is any less valid than the category of lion.
Any less biological.
Well, it depends on your level of analysis.
Well, it depends on what you mean by
We have the term predator, which implies that all predators have something in common, because otherwise we
Dawkins right now. He's like, what in the fuck is happening? What are you saying?
wouldn't have the term. It's like there's no reason to assume ontological priority for the category of lion over the category of predator.
Yes, there is. Well, not predator, no. Because lion is a more specific version of predator. But definitely lion over dragon.
Like it depends on all that would determine.
So give me a situation where it is more clear to talk about a predator and to say dragon instead of predator without expecting somebody to already know the reference that you're making.
Which of those terms should be used is the purpose towards which the conceptualization is being directed. If you want to identify a particular class of predator, well, then lion is a good term.
You would say that lion.
But lion would be a good term. Again, because we know that those exist and what they do and how they act and so on and so forth. Dragon would not. Does this dragon spit fire? Does it fly? Does it have claws? What are you talking about?
Lions are an instantiation of this bracket term of predator.
Well, I would also say...
Would you therefore say that a lion is an instantiation of the bracket term of dragon?
Yes.
A lion is a dragon! We've gone full woke! We've gone full woke! If the lion identifies as a dragon, then it is a dragon. What is happening?
therefore say that of this bracket term of predator.
Well, I would also say...
Would you therefore say that a lion is an instantiation of the bracket term of dragon?
Yes. Yes, because... See,
look, his hand's frozen in the air. Look, I didn't
Also
see
say-
that.
Would you therefore say that a lion is an instantiation of the bracket term of dragon?
yes. Yes, because... See, because we're not only...
And again, here's the thing. I am not discounting that there is a way that what Jordan Peterson is saying makes sense. I'm not saying that what he's saying certainly does not make sense. What I'm saying is he is doing a very bad job of articulating what exactly he means, both to the people in front of him and to me. You guys seem to be having your own conversation, but I don't know what y'all thinking about this, but god damn.
Fact-oriented creatures, right? It actually matters to us whether we get eaten. Like it's one thing to lay out the nomenclature of the animal kingdom, but it's another thing to remember that predators can eat you. And then it's another thing, and this is very interesting, and it's relevant to that story of the bronze serpent. It's like, what do we want to teach our children?
Guys, really quick, I want to ask you a huge favor. October was such a slow month. I got 16 new subscribers in the last 28 days. If you are new here, I would greatly appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. Again, I'm live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. As you can see, I try to be very engaged with the chat. You guys are having, a ball talking to each other, but usually we are, I try to be the most engaged with the chat on YouTube. This is where you want to be. Make sure you hit that subscribe.
Well, to identify predators, obviously. Well, what do we want to teach them more profoundly? What attitude
do we want to teach them that lions are dragons, or do we want to teach them that words have meanings?
They should take towards the eternal fact of the predator? And the attitude they should take is something like the courage to voluntarily confront, and not to run away, and not to hide, and not to freeze.
Okay, but if it's a lion or a dragon, you should definitely run away. Does it? No? Do we not? So you want to teach children, if you see a predator, go check it out. Don't hide. Don't freeze. Go check it out.
Stupid.
I feel like that's how children get trafficked, but okay.
And not to casually demonize, but to assume that in the combat with...
Yeah, don't, when you see a predator in the girls' bathroom, don't demonize them. Don't freeze. Don't run. Explore.
What?
I am flabbergasted. Yeah, I'm with Sarah Marie. This is indeed the worst I've seen Mr. Peterson, and I've seen a lot. Bless you for your engagement. You are very welcome. Thank you for being here. Contact said you fight the predator / dragon, otherwise you're always running from it. No. Because there's multiple versions of predator. There's multiple, you are never prepared to fight a lion. What the fuck are you talking about? You are never prepared to fight a lion. You are probably, if I had to guess, probably the most physically capable person in this chat. And you would die at a baby lion. What the fuck are you talking about? You are glazing this motherfucker, dude. You are glazing Peterson so hard. He just said that lion and dragon is the same thing. You just said that when you see a predator, you should go towards it after him talking about children. So again, I ask you, if your daughter walks into the to the bathroom and sees a predator, you want her to fight that predator. You don't want her to run. You don't want her to hide. Because well, then she's explored, and she's gonna explore, and now she's prepared to fight after she gets raped. What the fuck are you saying, dude?
With the eternal predator, an eternal treasure might be found. And that's exactly what you do, whether you know it or not, when you teach a child to be courageous. And
there's a difference between being courageous and being reckless. Just saying, "Ooh, predator," that is reckless. That is reckless. Using your critical thinking to say, what type of predator is this? Is it a lion-level predator? Or is it I understand. Do you think that I don't? Do you think that I don't understand what he's saying? Are you under the interpretation that like? I get that this is all myth and representation and archetype. I get that. I get that. You get that. But how many people who are fans of Dawkins or Alex O'Connor are going to understand that? I'm taking this way too literally because that's how people work. They hear words, and those words have meanings, and then they understand those meanings, which is exactly why my point is that he is bad at articulating this. It is not a good message to send to your children when you see a predator. Explore. What you should be saying is that there are instances where things may be scary, but depending on the situation, it may be beneficial to go into the scary situation because it'll make you stronger on the other side. That is not the same thing as go explore a predator. And I understand, and you understand what Peterson is saying, but most people are just going to take the words at what they mean, which is why you should say what you mean. If you're speaking in code, then you can't get mad when other people don't understand you.
Now, and we know from the psychological literature that generalizes, and I do think it's identical with the mechanism of learning in human beings, because kids, us, we always learn on the edge. You know, in your own life, I know, and I don't want to be presumptuous, but no doubt there have been situations where you've been battling to have your ideas distributed, even to modify your own conceptions when you had something new to learn. That's a sacrifice. You have to kill your stupidity so that you can move forward. That's what happens in the story of Abraham, by the way, when he makes sequential sacrifices. So in the story of Abraham, you tell me what you think about this, because it staggered me when I understood it. Abraham.
When you understood it, or where you put it in a framing that made sense, that worked for you. Because the reality of the situation is that the whatever the fuck you want to call it, God said, go kill your child. And dude was like, you got it, dude. Not a good message. Not a good message. Now, the deeper message of that about servitude and sacrifice and loyalty, again, I understand that. But your average leftist, you expect the average leftist to hear this and understand what you and I understand. Not going to happen. The solipsism. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the people. It's about how people are going to interpret this. Interpret this. Yes, correct. I am using the proper definition of predator, because that without that being without giving a lexical definition, then the assumption is the words in the dictionary are the way that we use them. So if we wanted to say predator and mean this idea of something that is a challenge that if overcome will make you stronger, then he should have articulated that. We are smart enough to understand what he means. But most people are dumb. What was the George Carlin joke? Think about how dumb your average person is. 50% of people are dumber than that.
Is a protected person. He doesn't have to lift a finger. He lives in the socialist utopia. He's got everything delivered hand to mouth. He's at home till he's 70. And God comes to him as the voice of adventure, which is something remarkable to see, and says, you leave your zone of comfort and go out into the world, have your terrible adventure. And Abraham says, yes. And then a series of cataclysms occurs around him, just like it does in every adventurous life. And every time an episode concludes, he makes a sacrifice. Why? To get rid of what's stupid and old about him, so that he can progress and transform. And that happens to such a degree that he gets a new name, which means he's changed so dramatically he's not even the person he used to be.
And again, that's beautiful. That's great. That's amazing. Is that what you think the average person gets from that story? If so, you're wrong. And if not, then that's what you should be articulating.
And that's a consequence of following that adventurous pathway. And that's all coded in the story.
I think we just have to agree that we have different kinds of minds, and you're interested in symbols, and I'm interested in facts. I mean, let's take
There you go. Symbols and facts. Symbols and facts. What do you care about? Maybe that's just a difference in a difference in worldview. Maybe that's just a difference in worldview, and is not something that needs to be overcome. I'm willing to be wrong, but at this point in time, I don't think that's the case. I think it is definitely harmful to society to be clinging to this this particular ideology, and the further we cling to the ledge, the less likely we are to go inside. So I don't know what to tell you. Lontek said people are stupid. That's why we should abstract from predators to dragons, so that stupid people can learn what a malevolent predator is. Actually, if I remember correctly, let's just
predators. I mean, predators, I'm fascinated by predators. Predators are, the relationship between predators and prey is an arms race, an evolutionary arms race. And whenever you see a really complicated, beautifully designed piece of biology,
and before anybody says anything, beautifully designed piece of biology does not mean designed intelligently. It means designed by the process of natural selection.
Hume, I think, one of Hume's characters called things that ravish into admiration or who contemplate them. This is almost certainly the result of an arms race, probably between predators and prey, could be between parasites and hosts. Mm-hmm. And so if we are talking about adaptations to just the climate, woolly rhinoceroses grow hair because it's getting cold. That's relatively boring. Mm-hmm. But when it's an adaptation to a predator, mm-hmm. then you get an escalation of adaptations by prey, which are countered by predators, which are countered by prey, so you get a gradual escalation. Now that's interesting. That explains why you have animals that run fast, why they have keen sense organs, why they have teeth, why they have sharp teeth, why they have behavior patterns that either protect them from predators or, if they're predators, help them to catch prey.
So, Guante, you're telling me that is harder to understand than dragons actually exist, and you should always engage predators. Okay, dude.
The idea of the arms race is the thing that grabs me. The arms race between, nothing to do with dragons. And
so fair enough, right? And I share your appreciation for that remarkable, what the remarkable phenomena that emerge in consequence of that. Okay, so let's take the idea of arms race. All right, so here's how I would construe what I said in what I think might be your terms.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So this could turn things around a lot. If he can articulate what it is that he was saying in the what did he say in Dawkins terms, in the fact-based term, then okay, we have a much bigger thing that I need to look into. But what I am hearing, based on my level of intelligence, which I think is decent, but certainly not through the roof, that made no sense.
Transformed the battle with the predator into a meme battle. We abstracted it so that we could figure out how to deal not with a predator, but with the class of all possible predators. Right, exactly. And the appropriate way to deal with the class of all possible predators is something like a meta-ethic. It's a stance that, let me give you an example of this. We actually know something about this psychophysiologically. And you can look at it spiritually or physically, and it doesn't matter. So, for example, if you take people in psychotherapy and they're accidentally exposed to something they're afraid of, they have a stress response that's damaging if it's sustained, and they become more frightened. But if you expose them to exactly the same stressor, and they do it voluntarily, they manifest an entirely different pattern of psychophysiological activation.
This reminded me of the that Dean guy, that liberal guy who's been debating everybody and debated that girl with Steiny from whatever podcast that it was, and she's like, "Can you stop saying this gay retarded stuff?" Or he's like, "Can you stop saying all this gay stuff?" I was like, "I'm going to ask you to stop saying gay, please." Oh my God, this is retarded liberal shit. Oh my goodness.
Okay, and it's a stance of challenge, right, and not of fear. All right, and so one of the things that you're doing in psychotherapy when you get people to expose themselves to, you could say predators, because that's an accurate way of dealing with it, is that you get them to shift into a mode of voluntary confrontation instead of prey-like apprehension and retreat. And what they learn from that is that they can embody that pattern, which I would call a spirit metaphysically. They can embody that. They can practice it. It's also the case, there's some evidence that there's epigenetic consequences of that. If you practice that process of voluntary confrontation with the terrible unknown, it can catalyze transformations that reach all the way down into the cellular. And so we abstracted the fight with the predator into the imaginal space. We play out various tactics. Some of them are conserved and transmitted. They adapt themselves to the structure of human memory, and they make the foundation for our most fundamental narratives.
Nope. I'm sorry, bro, but this is like, and again, like if Richard Dawkins and Alex O'Connor are having trouble understanding what you're saying, these are people who have dedicated their lives to understanding exactly what you're saying, and they don't. Is that their fault? Or is that his fault? I will leave you with that. A big thank you to everybody who was here. Even if you were chatting, if you were just watching anything, I really, really, really do appreciate you spending the time here. Dilly to all of you. Shout out to the chat, but let's give a big shout out to our donations. We had Sarah Marie. We had our Master General. Stephen Bravo came in with a gifted membership. We had Sarah Marie again. And of course, with not only the $5, but the 10 gifted memberships, our boy, the Funk Master General. Thank you so very, very much for hanging out with me, guys. There is a little bit left of that podcast. If you would like to see it in full, the link is in the description. Again, guys, I am live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and I try to go live about 5 days a week, and I think this is definitely a good place. As you guys see, I'm not necessarily, tonight, I'm not necessarily getting involved in your discussion, but, as much as I could see that you guys are talking to me, I want to talk to you because I don't have this all figured out. I don't claim to have this all figured out. I need you guys. And I really appreciate you being here. So again, thank you so very, very much. A big shout out to all of the members. I really do appreciate you. Since we had, we kind of came back from this October lull. I don't know what happened, but we're since we're doing a little bit better than we have been. I said I wasn't going to do an after party because I'm losing my voice, but I'll give you until I finish my drink. All right. So if you remember, make sure you're in the Discord. Make sure you have all the permissions because we are headed right over there. Thank you so very much, guys. I really, really, really appreciate it once again. This is Morty, and I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, we are out of here. Peace.